$5,000 fair and open. Resolution 438, authorize professional service agreement with Charlie Gagin, Assistant City Attorney, the professional service agreement for 2014, not to exceed $30,000, fair and open. Resolution 439, authorize professional service agreement with Bob Software Capfield LLC for 2014 labor council, not to exceed $25,000, fair and open. Resolution 440, authorize professional service agreement with Hogan Longo Moran Thompson Lucas for special counsel for tax appeals in 2014, not to exceed $50,000, fair and open. Resolution 441, authorize professional service agreement with Francesco, Bateman, Cody, Josephine, Kutzman, David, and Berger for conflict counsel for tax appeals in 2014, not to exceed $5,000. Resolution 442, authorize professional service agreement with ERD Evaluation and Consulting Services. This is in reference to real property appraisal services for tax appeals in 2014, not to exceed $50,000 per annum. Resolution 443, authorize professional service agreement with realty appraisal for property inspection services for added assessment in 2014, not to exceed $7,500 per annum. Resolution 444, authorize professional service agreement with Spatial Data Logic Inc. for tax map maintenance and EIS maintenance services for 2014, not to exceed $40,000 per annum. Resolution 445, authorize professional service agreement with Spatial Data Logic Inc. for maintenance and support services for municipal software in 2014, not to exceed $25,525 per annum. Resolution 446, authorize professional service agreement with U.S. Healthwork Medical Group of New Jersey for 2014 physician services, not to exceed $37,500 per annum. Resolution 447, authorize professional service agreement with Bridgewater Veterinary Hospital for veterinary services for 40 canine units, Police Department for 2014, not to exceed $5,000. Resolution 448, authorize professional service agreement with Hatchmont McDonald Holdings Inc., doing business as Hatchmont McDonald LLC for 2014 engineering and support services for water utility, not to exceed $110,000 per annum. Resolution 449, award professional service agreement with Hatchmont McDonald for engineering site inspections for approved site plans. The term is January 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2014, funded by escrow, and this was per annum. Resolution 450, authorize professional service agreement with Willis, Bowman, and Spitzer for 2014 bond council. The amount is $24,939 per annum. Resolution 451, authorize professional service agreement with Samuel Klein and Company for municipal auditor 2014, not to exceed $87,125 per annum. Resolution 452, authorize professional service agreement with Vital Communications Inc. for tax assessment computer program and technical support for 2014, not to exceed $19,500 per annum. Resolution 453, authorize professional service agreement with First Bite Corporation for tax, water, and sewer billing and collection software, maintenance, and software support services for 2014, not to exceed $25,715 per annum. Resolution 454, approval of board of contract with Borough of Helmera for kennel services for the Division of Animal Control. The term is 12 months, starting in January 16, 2014, and ending on January 15, 2015, not to exceed $18,000 per annum. Resolution 455, Sandy, there's nothing here, Mr. Hamilton?
No, that's blank, that was the case, we had an addition.
Resolution 456, approve place-to-place transfer, expansion of licensed premises, liquor license. This is for El Rancho Bar and Grill LLC.
Madam Council President, on that one, when we come to it, we can do it now if you want. A conversation with Mr. Patterson. And in the next to last be resolved in the resolution, it now reads, applicant shall furnish a copy of the certificate of occupancy to the city clerk prior to activation of the license. I want to put after city clerk, after certificate of occupancy and compliance with conditions of the planning board prior to it. If someone would move that amendment, I'd appreciate it, and it will not prevent you from adopting the plan.
Can I have a motion to amend the resolution as stated by Mr. Manager?
Motion.
You have a second? Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan is absent. Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes.
Right.
Resolution 457, approve resolution to refund escrow for Sicar Housing LLC, the amount is $2,311.52. Resolution 458, approve resolution to refund escrow to 130 Eastern Avenue LLC, the amount is $6,168.44. Resolution 459, approve off-premise raffle, gives at 77 Church Street, New Brunswick, for court appointed special advocates of New Jersey, that's CASA. The date is on June 20th, 2014. Resolution 460, approve request for street closing requested by the State Fever. The location is Livingston Avenue between New and George Street for the annual Hub City Carnival 8th Annual Family Day on Monday, February 17, 2014, from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Police extra duties required. Resolution 461, approve request for use of city property requested by Roberts Kilo. The location is Bucola Park and Pavilion for a 5K run walk and 1 mile road walk on Sunday, May 4th, 2014, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Resolution 462, approve request for use of city property. It was requested by Elijah's Promise. The location is Bucola Park and Pavilion for turkey trot, 3K walk, and 5K run on Sunday, November 2nd, 2014, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Resolution 463, approve request for use of city property requested by American Cancer Fund. The location is Bucola Park and Pavilion, a 5K run to increase cancer awareness on Saturday, May 31st, 2014, and the time is from 7:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Resolution 464, approve request for use of city property requested by American Conference on Diversity. The location is Bucola Park and Pavilion for Diversity Strike Walk on Saturday, June 14, 2014, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Resolution 465, approve payment for emergency procurement water utility for the repair the road water pump at the DNR Canal with Rapid Pump and Meter Service Company, not to exceed $11,892.43. Resolution 466, approve emergency temporary appropriations for 2014. Resolution 467, authorize settlement of worker compensation claim for state of Carmela Bonani, widow of Thomas Bonani, not to exceed $20,090. Resolution 468, approve amendment of resolution 081143. The reason is to pay additional legal fees in the amount of $4,441.24 to Golden, Rothschild, Spagnola, Lonzo, Boylan, and Garibaldi PC for Thomas Bonani versus the City of New Brunswick from $4,763.74 to $9,204.98. Resolution 469. Approve resolution to pay legal fees in the amount of $5,069 to Golden, Rothschild, Spagnola, Lonzo, Boylan, and Garibaldi for Angelo Biondo versus the City of New Brunswick, not to exceed $5,069. Resolution 470. Approve transfer of appropriation reserves for 2013 municipal budget. Resolution 471. Authorized purchase by the Police Department under state contract number 75583, WSCA computer contract from Quality Communication System, who is an authorized dealer for Panasonic Industrial Company, for 4 Panasonic arbitrator kits and accessories. not to exceed $29,710.16. Resolution 472, approve amendment of resolution 031-27. The reason is to extend the contract for one additional year with Business and Governmental Insurance Agency, BGIA, for insurance brokerage services for prescription drug program. The term is 12 months, starting in February 1st, 2014 to January 31st, 2015. Resolution 473, authorize application, execution, and acceptance of grant with Middlesex County for 2014 New Brunswick Alliance on Substance Abuse Prevention. Cash match of $10,834, and the grant is $43,334. Resolution 474, approve fiber optic cable agreement and right-of-way use agreement requested by Light Tower Fiber Network. The reason is to install its fiber optic cabling on poles owned by Verizon, PSE&G, and/or Cablevision. Resolution 475, approve amendment of Resolution 071-21. The reason is authorize additional services, water hydraulic modeling on the existing contract to be paid from developer's escrow with Hatch McDonald for 2013-2014 miscellaneous supplemental engineering services. Resolution 476, approve a board of contract for telephonic interpreting with Judith Grasberg, Luis Ugarte, Leonor Concevoy, ASL Interpreter Referral Service Inc., Para Claus Conciliation Suite, Language Services Associates, for interpreters for municipal court. Their term is 12 months, starting on January 16, 2014, and ending on January 15, 2015, not to exceed $21,000. Resolution 477, approve award of contract with Siemens Water Technologies, LLC, for maintenance and support services for the Mempour membrane filtration system. It's a 12-month period starting January 16, 2014, and ending on January 15, 2015, not to exceed $24,250 per annum. Resolution 478, authorize lease of copy machine for mayor's office. It's a 48-month lease. From Lee Capital Information Tech Solution, Business as Usual USA, for one digital copier, not to exceed $110.25 per month, beginning on February 1st, 2014, and ending on January 31st of 2018. This is a state contract. Resolution 479, approve amendment of Resolution 091-371. The reason is to add additional dates in February 14, 15, and 16. Approve request for solicitation of funds requested by Rutgers University Dance Marathon for Dance Marathon 2014 to benefit Embrace Kids Foundation. The dates are October 11, 12, 13 of 2013, November 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of 2013, February 28th, March 1st, and March 2nd of 2014, March 7th, 8th, and 9th of 2014. The times is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Various locations: George Street and Albany, George Street and Church, George and Fire Street, George and Commercial, Rice Lane and Dudley Road, George Street and Nickel Avenue, Easton Avenue and Somerset Street, and Easton Avenue and Hamilton Street. Resolution 480, approve award of contract and authorization to reject two bids with Carnews Line Inc., George S. Point Chemical Company, Univar USA, General Chemical Corporation, and Caris Corporation for furnish and deliver of chemicals for bulk feed facilities. The term is February 1st, 2014 to January 31st, 2015, not to exceed $673,383. Resolution 481, authorize Mayor Cato to endorse several city health certificates of sale for cancellation. Resolution 482, authorize refund to law office of James Kovac in the amount of $483.53 for payment made against 9 Loretta Street. Resolution 483, approve request for street closing requested by James Neal. The location is one side of Joyce Taylor Avenue from Baldwin Street to Southwood. for celebratory march honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday, January 20th, 2014, from 11:45 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. Resolution 484, authorize refund to U.S. Bank custodian for Crestor Capital in the amount of $1,222.74 against utilities on 207 Redmond Street. That's all for resolutions, Mr. Hans. At this time, the meeting is going to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Council Vice President Egan is absent. Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Present.
And Council President Escobar.
Here. Please be advised that the notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act has been complied with and satisfied in that the annual notice, which gave sufficient notice of the time and place and conduct of all public meetings of the Municipal Council of the City of New Brunswick, has been filed with the city clerk, has been placed on an appropriate bulletin board in the lobby of City Hall, New Brunswick, New Jersey, and has been transmitted to the official newspaper for the City of New Brunswick, namely the Home News Tribune.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please let's pause for a moment to honor those Americans and Afghans who have lost their lives in the war in Afghanistan. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to take a motion to approve the minutes of the December 4th, 2013. Can you have it second? Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have resolutions 433 to resolutions 482.
With one blank. With one blank.
With black, yes. Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Alvarez.
abstain.
You're not saying that. With 455, which is blank at this time. At this time, does any member of the council has any questions on any of these specific resolutions? Does any member of the public has any questions regarding any of these specific resolutions? Just come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Good evening, Charles Cradaville, 113 Lewis Street, 6th Ward in Brunswick. Is this just a vote on the reorganization matters, or is this on all of the
You
resolutions?
can do them all at once.
Yes.
Okay, well, in that case, I'll ask about the matters with the water utility first, so Mr. Bronchi doesn't have to keep standing up and sitting down. 40 ends in 48, number 16, Hatchbaum McDonald. It's an annual professional service agreement. What services do they provide, and how does this compare with the agreement that we entered into in 2013?
This is the number 16, Mr. Crackman?
Yes, number 16.
That's for the engineering and support services for the water utility. Mr. Mark?
This is the same RFP we put out every year. We're fair and open for general utility services for the water utility. It includes designing, planning, and general consulting services for matters concerning the water utility.
Thank you.
And it's the same amount as last year?
Is it the same amount as last year?
No, this year was increased by $20,000.
Thank you.
Next matter with the water is, ends in 6-5, number 33, repair the raw water pump and emergency procurement. What was the emergency, and how is the pump doing now?
This was to repair the raw water pump at the Delaware and Raritan Canal raw water pumping station. It pumps raw water from the DNR canal to the treatment plant for treatment.
And this emergency occurred in November, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there was,
I would say it was 3 months ago. They were
Somebody's home?
it's okay. I'm not sure if this is, I guess it's the water hydraulic modeling, I don't know what that is. And then the ends in 77, number 45 is the Siemens Water Technologies contract for the maintenance and support services. Can we hear a little more about that, elaborate on what services those are and how this compares with last year?
We're gonna start with 475, Mr. Maruska, which is the one with the hydraulic modeling.
That one I think I understand. what that was. Yeah, that's okay, but,
The 2.5, the Siemens
Yeah.
order to
Sorry, which one are we on?
the Siemens 77.
That is the maintenance and support contract for the Siemens microfiltration system we have at the plant. It's an integrated system of water filters and the computer software, PLC, that runs it. So the service contract covers on-site visits, remote troubleshooting, and emergency service.
Thank you.
and how does it compare to 2013?
Price.
Yes, what is anything different?
Do you recall the difference between?
I don't recall the difference in price, but the scope is the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back to resolutions, I think it's clear that the thing that stands out the most is that the city is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorneys. And I wanted to ask if any of those attorneys in the room would want to justify those expenses.
Well, we gotta pay our fees, right? We gotta pay our debts. If we're using them, we gotta pay. So there's several different cases, and I don't think that there's nothing that would say that we gotta pay our bills.
Do we need to have two professional service agreements, one for a city attorney, one for an assistant city attorney, when there's also another assistant city attorney who is an employee and collecting pension benefit, or collecting credits towards the pension system as well? How many attorneys do we need?
We've had a city attorney and 2 assistants, and at one time 3 assistants. Well, since I've been city attorney since 1986. I don't see any of these people sitting around doing nothing. They're working very hard.
Very busy.
And all the other attorneys, the outside contracts with these firms that,
They do specialized work.
I was gonna say those are matters that would specialize.
okay, and so on number 6 is for Ms. Gayton, the assistant city attorney. Does that include extra pay for her role as community liaison?
The pay for that is wrapped into her salary, which is not here. This is the amount that she can bill to.
Up to.
So she collects a salary in addition to this professional service
As I
agreement?
do.
What was that, Mr. Evans?
As I do.
As you.
So to be clear, the $80,000 for the 2 people sitting at that table is not enough. They also collect salaries.
They just get, this is something that they get a separate contract, and the other one is another specialist contract, so that's why they get.
And just so you know, it will undoubtedly bill more than that. This is a start out because we're on a temporary budget. If you come to the budget here, you know how much we put in the budget for legal services.
And also, this is just a start, up to that point. It doesn't mean that we spend $50,000, so it doesn't mean it's not to exceed. So that could be less, depending on.
Right, but Mr. Hamilton just said it's probably going to be more.
In the amount of money that all the work that we have been doing, yeah. pretty
Yeah,
much.
so what are the salaries for the attorneys for the city?
We don't have that at this point.
I would imagine they would know.
So I will get you that information if you want for the next.
Mine is 15, limited by law.
And Ms. Gayton?
30.
Okay,
30,000.
so the grand total then would be at least $65,000 for Mr. Hamilton and at least $60,000 for Ms. Gayton. How much does Mr. Shamley make?
Don't have that
A
information.
little bit in excess of 90. I can't tell you how much as I sit here.
And all 3 of these attorneys, in addition to being employees, in addition to these 2 professional services contracts, they also all have their own private firms, is that correct?
Yes.
I believe so.
Well, I'm really not happy about this. I think that, it's very clear that Mr. Shammy shouldn't be in the pension system if he has his own firm on the side. That's abundantly clear. And I question whether or not they're earning their full salaries if they're splitting their time between private practices and their work for the city. And you're about to approve an amount that they're telling you is not even enough to pay them for the full year.
Madam Council President, Mr. Shamey's continued participation in the pension system, which has been since he came on board in 1989, was totally vetted by the Comptroller General against their standards and has been upheld. And if Mr. Cradaville has a concern with our bills, I suggest that he look at the bills first and ask questions about it. And if he's still dissatisfied, we'll be happy to answer.
So it's because we haven't seen it, but you know, at this point, if this is what we have, this is what they have been working at. I am a witness of the work that they have done, so, and they continue to be doing it.
And when was Mr. Shamy's participation in the pension system vetted by the comptroller?
I don't want to get into that, Mr. Carter, because it is not part of it. We're talking about the, you know, you were talking about the salaries for Mrs. Gate and Mr. Hamilton, so at this time, I don't think that that's up for discussion. If you want, you could ask Mr. Hamilton later on or somebody else, but at this time, I don't think this is part of this discussion, because Mr. Shamy's salary or service contract, it doesn't have anything to do, it's not here. If it was part of this discussion, then I would be happy to answer, but it's not part of the resolutions that we have.
Well,
If you want to ask later on,
Well,
public.
Well, thank you for that. I just think it's relevant before the vote to know how much we're spending on attorneys in total. So Mr. Shamy's making over $90,000 and we're paying for his pension benefits. Do we really need 2 additional attorneys? Do we need to sign off on these agreements at all? Or can Mr. Shamy handle the job? Or does he not have enough time because he has a private practice on the side?
Again, Mr. Shami is not up for discussion in these 2 resolutions, but thank you. You could ask later on, you know, if you would like to, for Mr. Hampton, if he has the answer, but at this time, that's, you know, this is what we're discussing, Mr. Gaten and Mr. Hampton.
Okay. And just to be clear, Mr. Hamilton and Ms. Gaten are not being part of the pension system. Your pension is increasing as
No.
no, but so you're already collecting, though, aren't you?
Just,
But Ms. Gaten is not going to get a pension for this work, or is she?
Ms. Gaten, are you going to?
Past work probably, but not, she's not earning pension credits now.
At this time.
And when did that change happen?
What do you mean by that, Mr. Carter?
Mr. Hamilton just indicated she was earning a pension, and that no longer is that the case.
When the Comptroller General raised the issue about private counsel, they were all reviewed. It was a few years ago, and that's when the changes were made.
And I believe that was in response to a law from 2007 that was being violated. And so my concern is 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and it wasn't until, I believe, 2012, maybe, that the Comptroller General got involved.
So I guess it's, at this time, any other questions relating to any other resolution, Mr. Carter?
A comment regarding number 6. I think Ms. Gaten has not performed adequately in her role as the community liaison. So the extra pay that you're about to sign off on for her performance as the community liaison really hasn't been earned. There's been one man who has had exercised his right to have a hearing, and that hearing was on October 24th, and he was promised a verdict within 10 business days. And we are here in January 15th, and he hasn't received his verdict yet. So I want to know what Ms. Gaten did to earn that part of her payment.
Against Mr. Carter, this is, you know, when you bring it up about a case, it doesn't pertain to this resolution. It's about her salary. If you feel that she has not earned her pay, that's, you know, that she has not done part. And didn't you say that this salary does not include this part, the $30,000?
This is what she can bill for, not
For
what
it,
she
you know,
gets.
that she has been, she's going to get.
And I review the bills that she submits. I'm satisfied that they were all legitimate. I don't agree with everything that Mr. Shabazz has had to say at these meetings. I probably would agree with some of the things he said. But I think she has served the city well on this, and they're now waiting for something from Judge Hoffman to finally resolve the challenge to the criminal affairs investigation.
Well,
Anything else?
I disagree with Mr. Hamilton. I think, is it not true that that yourself, the council president, has apologized to Mr. Shabazz for Ms. Gaten's inability, or for whatever reason, the lack of progress on his case twice in the last year? You've apologized to the man?
Absolutely.
And that was the only case that she was handling in that capacity. Why is she being paid for that work?
Again, Mr. Carter, I have apologized to Mr. Shabazz. I have talked to him on many occasions about the case. There is obviously, there are some things that are working, some others that are not, that we will discuss, you know, this, I'm working on. But the work has been done. The work has been done. She has done, even though it has taken longer than any of us would like to, but she has done the job.
And
She has done what?
And to be clear, we're not paying her for the past work, she's already been paid for that. What you're about to sign off on is another year of her in that role. Are you comfortable with that?
If there's another case that she has to, she in that role, if there's anything that is related to that capacity, we have to pay for it. But I'm not aware of any other cases coming forward. And like I said, this is the case that it has taken going all the way. So the things that we have to look at. And again, but I am comfortable that after this, we will continue, she will continue to do the job as she has done now. And if there are some recommendations we need to change some things, we will do. But that doesn't reflect, to me, it doesn't reflect on her capacity or her knowledge of performing the job. So it's not, we cannot fault it just for that. There's other situations that concern the case, not only on the side of Ms. Gay, but Mr. Shabazz also.
And so just to be clear, you brought up a scenario where there might be no cases for her this year. If that's the case, she'll be paid for doing nothing, is that correct?
She has to bill
She has
against
to
this.
bill, Mr. Carlo. They have to bill.
Okay, forgive me, please, I'm just asking questions. I would suggest that number 6 be held, because the role of community liaison, as has been said before in these meetings, should not be performed by someone who has a conflict of interest in terms of being a city employee in other capacities, handling other cases, has her own firm on the side, and in fact, her brother is a New Brunswick police officer. So because of that, she's probably not the best person to serve as the community liaison, and I would suggest humbly that you don't sign up for another year of her being the community liaison.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Carlo?
Just let me check real quick. Yes, number ends in 67. Number 35 is workers' compensation claim. Can somebody tell me a little about that?
Thomas Benatti was a New Brunswick firefighter for many years. Apparently worked on materials that had to do with cancer. He filed a workers' compensation case that was resolved some years ago. Then he had a relapse. There was a reopening of the case, and he subsequently died. Under the law, his widow is entitled to a pension, and she died about a month and a half ago, and this wraps up the final, and it's considerably less than she might have otherwise been entitled to.
Thank you. It's very sad to hear. I want to make sure that situation is not happening again. There's no firefighters that are being asked to do the same thing.
Firefighters go where they get sent, and if there's asbestos material in there, they're exposed to the risk.
So this was related to responding to a fire.
Paul.
That and call boxes that apparently hit some same kind of material, asbestos material.
So have those call boxes been removed? Has the asbestos been removed or whatever?
I can't tell you that. I'll have to ask Mr. Walls.
Director.
There are no call boxes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then 2 down from there, and number 37 ends in number 69. This is legal fees for a case I'm not familiar with. Can somebody tell me why this person is suing the city?
He's not suing the city. Biondo was another firefighter. That was resolved a number of years ago, and for reasons that I can't explain to anyone, the bills sat around and didn't get paid, so we're getting paid now. It was all work that was done.
And was the case was resolved, I presume? Did Mr. Biondo win, lose? What was the case
Mr.
about?
Biondo got an award in some amount, and if you want to know what it is, you call me tomorrow, I'll dig out the file. I don't have it in my brain.
And to be clear, we don't know what the case was even about.
Yes, it was the same kind of thing. He's
Same-
a
same- okay.
firefighter.
Okay.
With an asbestos claim.
Just asking, forgive me, please. Yeah, that's all I have for the resolutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I can also kind of echo what Charlie said as far as resolution 011438. Mr. Hamilton said that, he didn't agree with a lot of things that Shabazz presented to the council. But that's only one case. and you guys saying she needs to build up with the work. What are you gonna do to help her build as far as the community liaison? Because I get called more than she does. And 95% of the cases that presented to her, I brought them to her. Like, no one actually contacted her. Everybody dealing with her position, they called Tormel Pittman first, and then I contacted her and sent them to her. Free of charge, being a good guy. But now, what is the city gonna do to help her so they won't have to contact me, so she can actually have a position that will work for the community? I mentioned coming out, going to the public, passing out business cards, pamphlets. I am the community liaison. This is what I do. These are my hours. This is how you can contact me. That hadn't been done yet. So how are you talking about she needs to build? She had a year. She had a year to try, and it was nothing. The only work that she got was from me. So where's my cut? I'm being honest. You guys are saying she has to build. And she'll tell you right now, every person that came in front of her, Tormel Pittman sent it to her. Nobody else, but you're saying she has to build. Is it a waste of time? Is it a slap in the community's face? Tell me, what is it? Because I mentioned, I don't want to be the guy, because they say the easy way to break your arm is to pat yourself on the back, but this is reality. This is true facts. And you guys give her time to build for next year. What is it going to be, more work for me?
But actually, Mr. Pittman, as community activists, using the community.
Listen, we're talking about money now.
Now, you let me finish, because if not, we cannot have this conversation.
Oh,
And I'm not going to start this year again. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
This year, we're not going to start with this
Go
again.
ahead.
If you're going to raise an issue, excuse me, let me finish talking. You have to be able to hold a conversation.
Okay.
But every time somebody answers you, you don't let people talk, you don't let finish.
Please.
And this is, excuse me, I'm talking.
I'm begging you to talk.
And I'm talking to you right now, and I haven't finished my statement. So if you're gonna have, this year I'm not gonna go through that again, Mr. Pittman. Because you want like everybody else respect, but you have to, this council deserves respect too. So we have tried as much as we can to be respectful to you and listen to your stuff, even if we don't agree. So let us give you a response. If you don't like it, that's fine, we don't need to agree on it. But you have to show respect and courtesy. That's what I'm asking. Can we do that?
Okay.
Because I don't want to go through this year again. I think it's enough. And what I'm saying is, as community leaders, that's our job, not to get paid. If we have somebody in the community who needs help, and you claim to be a community leader and activist, your job is to refer them to the places that they need to look for the help with. And I have said it here many times, this is, Mr. Shabazz, I can't wait to finish to see what is the result of the whole process, because nobody has gone through the whole process but him. And we have not finished yet. And that's why I want to see what happened, to see whether we need to make some changes that, we need to talk about it. Whether it worked, whether it didn't work. So those things, the first time that we're doing the whole process, he's the only one of all the people that you have sent. He's the only one that has gone through the whole process, that have followed up, that have done what he needs to do. So let's make that clear. I thank you because you refer people. I don't know why they didn't follow up, but the issue here is, we're talking about, at least in this resolution, is the service agreement. You don't agree with what Ms. Gaten has done. I have some challenges with some of the stuff that have taken too long. So let's just work on it. When Mr. Chala's case is finished, then we will talk about the changes, if any, that need to take place. And then we will address it. But let's not jump the gun until we finish. And I understand that it's frustrated to wait, but if nobody has done the process completely, there's nothing that we could compare with. So we got to learn and see what worked and what didn't.
Okay, as council president, I think you should look more in depth into situations before you voice your opinion. Because you have no idea, actually, obviously, of what's going on. Every person, and I wasn't there on all of them, I was only there on one occasion, but every person that, after going through the community liaison process, came back and said that they were discouraged, said that it's pointless, said that they were being talked out of proceeding further. I don't know if that's true or not, because I wasn't there. But these are the things, that's why only one person went forward. And as a council president, I would have, and being that people came forward and didn't follow through, that would raise me concern. Wow, let me see what's the reason why people aren't following through with this process. Is this process even needed? So if 5 people came through and only one person followed through, the process is bogus. You don't even really need the process then. This is what you're saying. I didn't say this. This is what you're saying. This process it serves no purpose. If out of a year only 5 people come, which is a small number, 1 person followed through, which is an individual, and you're saying that now you're going to justify why we should take this program and send it even further, do another year, you agree with that? After what you said, and then after what you explained, you're going to tell a level-minded person that you agree with the process? Only 5 people? Listen to yourself sometimes. Only 5 people came up, 1 person went through the process, and we're going to try to do it again. The process serves no purpose.
The 5 people that you're talking about, the people that have come before this council, if you recall correctly, they have not followed up. And they had admitted that they have not followed up in some of the cases when Ms. Gaten called them. They admitted that they did not follow up. So if you recall correctly, the only one that I could recall that had done what he was asked for, as much as, what he was required of, is Mr. Chavez. If you recall, the other ones have not followed up with the process. They started the process, but they did not continue the process because they were here, we asked them, and they admitted, some of them, that they did not follow the process.
Listen to me. When a person, she's the first part of the process. She's the first point of contact in this process. If a person goes to see her and they don't follow up and tell me that they were discouraged, wouldn't that even warrant you to even look into it? It's not like they went through another person and didn't follow up. They got discouraged at the first point of the process. She's the first person of contact. When you have a situation, here, call Ms. Gaten. You call Ms. Gaten. And the person sees Ms. Gaten and then calls me and say, man, listen, who did you send me to? Like, for real? Like, and I wasn't there, so I can't defend it, or, I don't have it, but this is what's going on. So as a council president, stop defending things. Start doing some work. You rush people out of here, but how much you getting here an hour? You're here, what, 2 times a month, right? For about, what, 2.5 hours? Get 9,000 in, that's about, what, $100 an hour? But you look at your clock, if a group of people coming in and you late for lunch, you're getting paid about $100 an hour to sit in that chair, right? Right? Am I right? If I'm wrong, 9,000 a year. And you rush people out. What I'm saying is do some work. Do your job. Look, investigate before you defend your co-workers and your colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pima. And for the record, like I said at the last time, I've been criticized because this meeting are too long and I let people talk too much. So
you're getting $100 an hour. Let them talk as long as they want.
I'm to 12, Mr. Pima. So
$9,000
thank
a
you
year.
for your comment.
2 times a month.
That's it. That's it. Because
So
you're
it's
out
not.
of order. You're out of order.
You're not the boss of me.
Well, in this tonight, you need to either conduct yourself
You're
in
an
a
elected
respectful manner, or you're not going to be addressed, to
You're
this
an
council.
elected official.
Thank you.
You gotta do
Next,
what's
anybody
elected.
else? Anybody else? Name and address, please.
Yeah, Anthony Laravina, 1050 George Street, here in New Brunswick. I also have a question about Resolution 11438. As the community liaison, does Ms. Gaten live in New Brunswick? Just a quick question.
No,
You don't?
no, I don't.
That's all.
Thank you.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I was just advised that the subject matter you're dealing with now is the continuation of Ms. Gaden as the community liaison officer.
No, this is, the matter that is at hand is the professional service agreement, which one part of it is the community liaison. work.
So that is a part of it.
Part of it.
And
Not the
from
whole
what I'm
thing.
understanding, it's talking about increasing how much she gets paid for that particular
No,
position.
no,
Is
it's not
that correct?
increasing, because that's why, it's the same amount, right, that she did last year. It's up to $30,000, not to exceed $30,000.
Well, from my understanding, she was being paid $10,000. I believe at a council meeting that was when ex-Judge Hamlin abruptly resigned as the hearing officer after our complaint. We found out that they were both getting about around $10,000, $15,000. So now it's $30,000.
No, Mr. Hamilton, George Hamlin is getting, no, not Hamlin, now it's Hoffman. $10,000, right? If
I don't have this contract in front of me. Judge Hamlin had a contract for 12.5 and never billed against it, never billed the city a penny. So
And
we
then
had- we
Ms.
got-
Gaines' last year's contract was, the service agreement was the same as this year,
Yes, it was.
which is just not community liaison.
It's all the work that she
It's all
does
the
for the
work
city.
that for the city, so. Do you have an idea of, how much of the 30,000 were billed for the community liaison?
I'd have to go back and pull out the bill, but I don't have it.
Just maybe that might clarify some of the concerns in terms of the, that she has done for that. This is a-
Okay, yes, because I'm somewhat confused by how we're determining the community liaison's salary. Based on actually what's happened, the community liaison office was put into inception about 2 years ago. Within that time, there's only been one hearing, which has been my hearing. And I've had to fight for that hearing. So it's not like I've really been properly assisted through that hearing. In fact, there's been roadblocks, obstacles constantly put up in. And if I wasn't such a fighter, I wouldn't have had that hearing. Just like I still haven't gotten a decision, even after having a hearing. So there's no way that the facts demonstrate that the community liaison has been effective in any way for the people. So if she's getting paid with public money from the people, yet not delivering an effective service to the people, really she should either resign and be replaced by someone else as the community liaison, or you might as well eliminate that whole office, because at this point it's proving itself to be a fraud. It's not helping anyone. I don't feel helped at all. I don't know anybody who can claim to be helped. Within 2 years, if you've only had one hearing, and that one hearing took almost 2 years to finally get it, where the facts themselves demonstrate that it's not effective, it's not useful, and that money is being wasted and somebody's getting paid to do virtually nothing.
What I will say, Mr. Charas, and like I just asked Mr. Hamilton, I don't know how much she has, Ms. Gaten had charged for that part of her salary for community liaison so I'm not sure how much is that amount. I know, like I said, the 30,000 is a combination of the work that she does plus that. So I have not seen it to tell you, okay, that was too much. I do, and I was saying it before you got here, and then you got here, that in my opinion, I always say that I apologize to you twice. It was brought back, and I say, yes, it's true that I apologize to you. This is a process, and you have been the only one who has, with the challenges, whether you're part at the beginning of what happened, and now, and the other challenges, you have continued to do the process, and you have been more than able and willing to do this, and I appreciate that. Again, I always say that only it is 2 years, there's no question that it's a long time. Nobody's disputing that. For whatever reason, either one side or the other, there's always reasons. But what I have always said is that if we don't have a complete process, how can we know what worked and what didn't know in the process? I do understand that we're learning in the process, in the meantime, that there's some challenges that need to be addressed, and it's something that I said that I will talk to you with all the details to see, because I look at you, the manner that you have come into this council with respect. You have come here with, even though whether we agree or not, you have been nothing but willing to listen and to give it a try, and I appreciate that. So, and that's why I said that I will meet with you and see, based on your experiences and meeting, see what happened, what can be done. I know that there's some, like I said, 2 years, whether it's your fault or our fault, doesn't matter. It's a long time, and I recognize that. And so I appreciate that, and thank you. I know that I have no idea how much money has been spent on the community liaison aspect of it, but I will find out. And then, but other than that, I know that regardless, she has done her job. She has done her job.
Well, what I would like to share in response is, when you pointed out the challenges that have been involved over this 2-year process, I think it's important to note that the challenges have been created by the very people who have been put in the position as the community liaison, as the hearing officer, as the internal affairs. The very people put in the positions of power who are supposed to be helping us are the ones creating the challenges. And that's an important point that must be acknowledged. And so when we're saying, well, I believe your words were, you acknowledge and you admit that 2 years is too long. I appreciate that. But then you go on to say, whether it's your fault or our fault really doesn't matter. I completely disagree with that. It does matter whose fault it is. And to me, the facts already demonstrate exactly whose fault it is. This is not something that it takes a rocket scientist to figure out whose fault it is. The facts are clear. I mean, and just to run through just a few of the facts, it will take me a lot of time to go through all the facts, so I'm not going to do that. But just to go through a few of the facts, I filed a request, a formal request for an internal affairs hearing review. It took 7 months before I even got a response. And I didn't even get a response by mail. I had to write 2 letters within 7 months requesting the hearing. And I was ignored by the community liaison for 7 consecutive months. I had to come here like I'm coming here now and publicly complain about being ignored by the community liaison. And only after finally publicly complaining and you addressing the matter and showing some concern, did I finally get an apology from the community liaison and finally get a meeting where we could try to set up the hearing. So it took 7 months and me coming here complaining just to even get a meeting with her. Whose fault is that other than hers? There can be no justification, and that's what I'm saying. Some of these things, come on, you gotta just finally admit it is what it is. Let's stop making excuses for colleagues and admit it is what it is. There's nothing that can be said to show other than whose fault it is. It was Ms. Gaines' fault. She ignored me for 7 months deliberately. Then the excuse that was given was, I didn't know how to respond to your letter. This is a professionally trained attorney. How do you not know how to respond to my letter? And there's only one response that you could possibly give that would be a legitimate response. Okay, I'm the community liaison officer. You're requesting an internal affairs hearing review. No problem. I'll set up a meeting with you. What day is good for you? What other response is there? Let's set up the meeting so that we can schedule your hearing. So this excuse is another lame duck excuse. I didn't know how to respond to your hearing. Come on, this is an intelligent woman, a professional woman who's been a professionally trained attorney, a city attorney for years. And you don't know how to respond to a simple request for a hearing? Come on, cut it out. Like, that's an insult to my intelligence. And I get very offended when someone insults my intelligence like I'm some stupid joker, like I'm some ignorant guy off the corner who don't know nothing. Even the ignorant guy off the corner can see through that. So all I'm saying is, come on, let's be honest. I have respect for you. And as you said, every time I've come here, I've been respectful. And the reason I'm respectful is because to me, you do demonstrate, because I can be disrespectful. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm holier than thou. If I feel like I'm being disrespected, I can be disrespectful back. But I feel that you have demonstrated concern, so therefore to me you have earned respect. That's why I give you respect. To me, people who don't deserve it, I don't give it to them. And clearly, when someone avoids me for 7 months, what other motive can you have except for you don't want me to have the hearing? Then after we finally have the meeting, the hearings are constantly, the hearing dates are constantly canceled. We have to look at the totality of circumstances, and you see a pattern and practice that has developed. So we have to be clear on who created the challenges for me for almost 2 years. you're looking at the person who created the challenges for me for almost 2 years. The very person who's supposed to help the community is actually acts in an adversarial capacity towards the community. Even reporter Charlie Cradaville pointed out at the last city council meeting, he was there, he witnessed that she behaved more as an adversary to me than a community advocate. She's been no help, she's been a hindrance. She's worked against me the entire process. So, she doesn't deserve to get paid any money. I don't know what you're saying she did over 2 years that warrants $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but I mean, come on, I'm pointing out facts that can't be ignored, that demonstrates clearly she has been more of a hindrance and a harm to the people than a help. So, if you do leave her in that position, and if you do actually approve her to get paid, that is a miscarriage of justice, and I will continue to fight against it.
Thank you. Anybody else related to these specific resolution, resolution 433 to 484, except 455, which is empty? Any comments on those, any of these resolutions?
Is this regarding what they were just speaking about? I came in late.
They were talking in reference to resolution 434, which is a authorizing professional service agreement with Ms. Charlie Gayden, Assistant City Attorney, not to exceed $30,000.
Oh, no. Is there going to be a section where it's open to the floor, is open to the public?
Yes, absolutely. After we do the resolutions, there will be a place for the public to come in and talk.
Need a motion on the second. I need a motion.
We're going there. Wait a minute. Just waiting to see if anybody else. We have resolutions 433 to resolutions 484. At this time, except for 455 is empty. Can I have a motion to accept this resolution?
Motion.
Second. If there's any abstentions? Any, just roll call, and just for the record of 438, I'm going to abstain at this time. Roll
So
call.
noted. Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti?
Aye.
Council President Escobar?
Yes. At this time, we have anybody from the council wishes to address the public?
I would just like to say that some of the comments made earlier, there were suggestions of not sufficient work product for remuneration. The city attorney's office works very diligently to ensure that the work of this council is carried out in a proper and lawful manner. In addition, aside from appearing at these city council meetings, myself as well as my colleagues participate on other committees, boards, and commissions as council liaison. So there's much greater responsibilities than simply sitting through the public hearings. I enjoy this work. I enjoy serving the citizens of the city of New Brunswick. I am an elected official, and I serve literally at the will of the people. And I believe I'm upholding my part of the bargain, and I'm proud to serve with these colleagues. And that was all I would like to say.
I just want to, recognition today is January 15th. It's the official birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. And I want to commend Mr. Neal. I see him here. He's holding, what's Monday? When is your, the Monday? If you could give me some more info, I want to participate, let you, I know you're going to come forward and talk about it, but I didn't want to let that day go by without recognizing that. And, hopefully everybody, if you have off, which I do on Monday, just remember you can attend that, tell everybody. And just remember, this is a day, it's a service day. It's not a day to sit around and sleep in late and stuff like that. It's a day of service, and that's the best way that you can commemorate your life.
The idea, obviously, by law, before I even came here, city council people get $9,000 It's not just for council, it's for emails, it's for talking to citizens, it's for going to different places. So there's a lot more to that than just coming to the council meeting twice a month.
Yes, Mr. Reader.
Good evening. I'd just like to say a few remarks and be on my way. I feel the frustration in the building, which reminds me of Dr. King, who stand tall in Washington, D.C. on the mall between two presidents that actually, one actually is the reason why we have America, and the second one is the reason that we kept America together. And Dr. King, to be recognized, to stand tall on that mall, is an honor to what type of person he was. He was for all people. And no one had to give me anything to appreciate what Dr. King did for me and for everybody. As far as the program that we're going to have Monday, it has grew. And before I say that, I just want to thank the council, and I want to thank various people who helped me put paperwork together to make sure it got there on time, and I really, really appreciate that. All we're trying to do is put something together to see how we can solve some of these problems, so we get the best players out there, so we can win the game. It's just like coaching. When you want to win, you got to have the best players, and you got to have a purpose. You certainly have a cause. On Monday, we want to be at 268 Baldwin Street, the Board of Education building, at 11 o'clock. Between 11 and 11:30, we want to do a few presentations. And the theme is from I have a dream to dream as one. And I really like to see some young people write some poems. If we dream as one, maybe we can have, maybe we won't have the school shootings. If we dream as one, maybe, you know. And I really want to see what they're thinking, not so much what I'm thinking. This way, we get an idea on where we should go. And from there, we're going to march up to the mural that's on the corner of Sanford and Joyce Comer, and we're going to light a candle. I don't know who's going to light the candle at this point, but, you know, I got a feeling that we'll figure that out. So, you know, do committee. So nobody's a dictator. And I'd like to thank Councilman Anderson who came last time, and I'd like to thank Rebecca who came. And I hear you pushed this thing too. I couldn't get down here in the snowstorm, but you you represented well to make sure it was there, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. This time, any other member of the public who wishes to address the council?
Are you finished with the resolution?
No, we'll go ahead already. Yes.
Hi, yes, my name is Danielle Moore. I stay at 211 Joyce Comer Avenue. I'm here for 3 different situations tonight. One, I would like to start off with the good news. That's where I would really like to give New Brunswick Fire Department a very good applause due to the Arctic blast we had. How well they were responding to calls, maybe every 15 to 20 minutes to busted pipes and sprinklers. So, believe me, they were really working. I would surely love to give them a compliment for all the hard work that they were really doing.
Thank you, Ms. Neal.
And then also a compliment to New Brunswick Police Department due to where I hear that they were riding around making sure homeless were warm enough. But my other 2 situations where it's kind of sad what I'm here today. About 2 weeks ago, not 2 weeks ago, 2 meetings ago, I mentioned to you how come nothing ever gets into the whole news, what goes on in New Brunswick. If you can tell me who's responsible, the city police department, in responding to news, what goes on around in New Brunswick?
I think, Ms. Michelle, this depends on what, do you mean that the reporters to come here? Do you mean the press releases?
The criminal, fire, anything, criminal, fire, anything.
Because it's up to, I believe it's up to the newspaper to cover news, right?
Captain Miller and I both put out press releases. I put out on what's going on with the city. Captain Miller does it in regard to the police department. We share each other's press releases. We send them out to all the media throughout the state. It's up to them if they want to print it.
Exactly, it's up to them
We
whether they want to
send
cover
it
it or
out.
not.
They don't print it.
Okay, well, please to prove a point with what I'm gonna say today. Wow, since the last meeting that you had, wow, you had a stabbing on French Street, that was 12/31/13. You had a beat up on French Street in Townsend, 12/31. You had a stabbing on Baldwin Street between Joyce Comer and Livingston Avenue, that was 1/1/14. You had another stabbing on Baldwin Street from Joyce Comer to Livingston, that was 1/5/14. You had a 17-year-old stabbed in the head on the corner of Renton and Comstock, 1/7/14. And my purpose of being speaking on this, because not knowing a very good friend until after a few days later, which he was buried this morning, his name is Andrew Jackson, where he was the one that was beat up on French and Townsend, where he was found dead because internal bleeding. None of this ever makes the newspapers, and then that's when you had on 110 a North Brunswick man shot in the leg. Then on 113, which was Monday, you had another person stabbed over here on Joyce Comer Railroad. And then that's also on 19 where they found a 28-year-old dead over in Toll's Manor, where she was murdered. But out of all of this stuff that I just mentioned to you, please tell me why within the past 2 weeks, the only criminal that was in the newspaper for the past 2 weeks was the situation where the man was shot in the leg on French Street in Townsend. What, was that because he was a North Brunswick man? Wow, the other thing that was in the newspaper, wow, because two Rutgers students got burglary. But like I said, my point is, like I said, due to where a very sweet friend, innocent person, where it seemed like certain things, the city or the police department, no hard feelings, does not say what goes around in New Brunswick. Like New Brunswick is so quiet. You can see Franklin put in their situation, Woodbridge, they can put in their situation, but wow, nothing ever happens in New Brunswick.
Captain Miller, would you like to address that?
I know Ms. Moore does a lot of community work, and I appreciate that, but I think she's misinformed on some information. We've had no murders yet this year. I don't know what she's talking about on Top Matter. There's been no murders. I give a lot of information to the press if they ask. There's been a lot of other big things in the news with the governor that seems to be taking a lot of press time. You do not print a lot of stuff I give them. I don't give them a thing of every incident that happens in the city. You know, I give them a rundown of stuff, and it's up to them to print. I don't have any control over what the newspapers print.
Thank you.
And one more situation, like I said, even though I have nothing against the police department, even though sure your officers have been calling me names and all, not saying who's making it look like I have something against the police department. And one thing that I would like to make towards safety, I know Officer Savage, he has retired, which I hope he's being replaced by a New Brunswick resident, not a new cop that doesn't know anything about what's going on with the system for our safety with our children in the area. And one thing, we're getting back to Livingston Avenue. I know you said that's county, but one thing, if you can look into the difference is if you can maybe adjust the lighting, starting from Rutgers Street up going Livingston Avenue, you have white lights, where the white lights are very dull, and how the orange lights are much brighter. So I know you said it was hard to make changes, but even if you can try to change the light bulbs, because I do see the difference, which I do have a couple of pictures here for you to show you the difference of how the orange lighting is better, and the white lighting is not doing anything. And for far as making it also safe, due to where I would like to know if New Brunswick Police Department can do pedestrian walks, road checks like maybe Holland Park does. How many accidents you hear going on in New Brunswick? But yes, due to where on this day, back in June I believe, due to where I don't know exactly what dates you call it, but that was when the mayor was over to sign the beam for Red Shaw School. where I was wondering if the police department did road check there, how come they can't do it anymore? Was that just because the mayor was there that day and it was time for re-election? To try to make it safer for our area?
I haven't seen the pictures, but
Well,
what
okay.
I will address to you, Ms. Daniel, is you were here at the last two meetings where we discussed that we have reached out to the county through Freeholder Polos, and the county, who in turn he was going to talk to the county engineer. So regarding the concerns about that area that is inhabited by Foodtown, and they have, the city met with the county also engineering, and they had working on some measures which are not permanent, but we are trying to do something in the meantime because it's going to take, we don't want to wait until it's going to take a while to be able to do what we actually want to do. But at least they have been, the police, they have put a sign, a speeding sign for a while. We have pedestrian signs now there. And they're looking into other immediate temporary solutions for that area. And Mr. Patterson, if you would like to give a little bit more information on the type of stuff or discussions that you have been having with the county.
Sure. We had the opportunity to meet with Director Ralph Albanere of County Infrastructure from the county, and County Engineer Rich Wallner, with myself, City Engineer Tom Golden, and Mark Siegel from my office. We were discussing some of the interim improvements that can be made out there, such as the speed signs and so forth, to provide additional information to drivers that they may be exceeding the speed limits, to try to get them to slow down. We're also trying to explore more long-term improvements to the street that will make some physical changes out there that would, we think, more effectively encourage drivers to obey the speed limits and drive at slower speeds and make the street pedestrian friendly. As I mentioned a couple of meetings ago when we first brought this up, looking at the concept of a road diet on the street, which would reduce the number of lanes, provide some turning lanes in there, and provide some bicycle lanes on the street. It needs to have a feasibility study first to determine if it will be able to work out there with the road widths and the volumes of traffic. We met with them and we agreed that that was the next step we were going to take, to try to get a consultant on board to take a look at that. So as the council president said, we want to try to do some interim steps to make some improvements, but to really change the road around and really be effective there. It's going to take a little bit longer term, and there are more physical improvements that need to be made out there. But it's something that's a priority for the mayor and the administration, and we've been working with the county to try to do that. And particularly Director Albanere said that the county wants to be very supportive of the city in trying to make that a safer road.
Well, okay, once again, like I said, if you would like to take the pictures to show what I'm talking about, even if it's possible for you to make the lighting a little brighter going up in that area. But like I said, once again, where I have nothing against the police department, even though, like I said, some of them are calling me names and don't know who's saying things about me the wrong way, but believe me, I do try to make it a little better for our community due to where I've been here all my life, 37 years. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
If there is any problem, obviously police officers should not be calling anybody any names. Certainly feel free to give it to Captain Miller, Mr. Walker, or something. I'm sure you can check that out. I would also encourage the police to continue their vigilance on Livingston Avenue when they do not have calls, as they have been doing, as I've seen them. So, thank you.
Good evening once again. Charles Cradaville, Lewis Street, New Brunswick. I want to begin by thanking the council for their service. I know it's not an easy job that you have. And I hope that whoever's telling you that the meetings are too long, that you don't listen to them, because they don't have to be here and they don't have to watch the whole thing if they don't want to. I also want to commend Ms. Moore for her work. As you know, I'm the editor of a newspaper, New Brunswick Today, and we welcome any story ideas or news tips. I can be emailed at editor@newbrunswicktoday.com. My phone number is 732-993-9697. And anyone in this room, including members of the administration, feel free to contact us if you have anything that you think deserves coverage or that you would like to see covered. Unfortunately, I don't receive the city's press releases, so I had to read this in the home news, but I would like to start by reading a quote from our part-time mayor who does not attend these meetings, James Cahill. The quote is, "Let this serve as a clear and strong message that any illegal conduct by any and all city employees will not be tolerated and will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Quote, "As city employees and officials, we have one responsibility, and that is to serve the public. Any deviation from this is unacceptable." Of course, this quote is in reference to Michael Mahoney, a city employee since 1994, who was arrested and charged with possessing a distribution quantity of cocaine in a city-owned vehicle. The arrest was made by the state police. And my first question is when will he be fired, and why hasn't he already been fired?
It's entitled to a hearing. Charges have been brought against him. Hearing's not yet been scheduled.
Well, I hope
I asked the same question, not the same, you have to be fired, but I asked, well, what is the progress of that? Because, so everybody is entitled to due process, but it was up to me, it would have been gone the day after. But there's a due process that we need to follow. That's the law. We have to keep the law. We cannot, break the law, so we have to follow the law.
I hope he gets his hearing quicker than Mr. Shabazz got his. I'm also going to read another quote. This is from the Colonel Fuentes, the superintendent of the state police. Quote, "Crimes involving drug distribution and illegal firearms are always a priority, but this case is more significant for two reasons. Public employees were involved, and the illegal actions may have been going on for many years." Does anyone know how long that was going on for?
I certainly don't, and if we had known something was going on, action would have been taken by our police department or requesting the prosecutor's office to take action back when we found out about it.
Right, and so Mr. Mahoney was arrested as part of Operation Smokescreen, a state police operation that ended up taking off the streets 1.5 kilos of cocaine, 12 ounces of MDMA, many other drugs, and many items related to the drug distribution, including scales, grinders, packaging equipment, and cutting agents, as well as a pickup truck that was used to distribute drugs. And I want to remind everyone, this is not just drugs. This is illegal weapons that were being trafficked. 17 handguns, 14 rifles, 2 assault rifles, 2 shotguns, 4 high-capacity magazines, 1 stun gun, 1 ballistics vest. Of the 36 weapons, 22 of them were illegal. So my next question is, why won't Mayor Cahill join Mayors Against Illegal Guns, an organization that has almost 100 New Jersey mayors that are against illegal guns?
Mr. Federer, we have told you in the past to ask the mayor himself, because we don't know why he's not. I guess it's his prerogative to join that organization or not. So I would suggest that you contact Mayor Cahill and you ask him that question.
I will do so again. I wish he would attend these meetings so that he could answer the questions for all of us here and everyone watching at home.
You know where to find him.
No, I don't. Milltown is where I can find him.
Well, you should ask him there, but he was there, you should ask him all those questions that you have, take advantage. He said you have such a hard time getting to him. I would have.
Can you help me get to him? Are you his running mate? Can you help me get to him?
His office is, you know where he's at. I don't think we need my help for that. He's open to all the residents of New Brunswick.
Okay, well, I do want to point out that there were some clues that Mr. Mahoney was not performing well in his job at the very least. Not only has he held a city job, but he's also been appointed by the mayor to serve on the Citizens Recreation Commission. As far as I know, he's still a member of that body. And his subordinate complained that he literally pushed and shoved him on the job. Citizens have complained for years that he has figuratively pushed good and decent people out of their homes. The biggest and best investment they made in their lives lost because of this man abusing his office. And we've heard about this a lot more now that he's been arrested, but we heard about this before you were even on the council. So I guess my last question about Mr. Mahoney is, why wasn't he investigated sooner by the city? Why did it take so long to figure out what he was up to?
Mr. Mahoney enjoyed a reputation as a hard-working inspector. I would attest to that myself because I had interface with him on many occasions. I was shocked when I read about what was in the newspaper. But his reputation as an inspector at least was very high.
Mr. Patterson.
Okay, moving on to other issues, there were several water main breaks when the really cold weather hit. Could I get an update on the cause and how quickly they were fixed and whether or not there were any other issues with the water, including the pumps and the treatment plant?
I wasn't here with the Carter when that happened, but I guess because it was like
Cold.
-0 temperature. I'm not an expert, but if any, water main breaks, why did it happen? I know it happened in my house.
Like every other utility in the state, we were affected by the cold snap. We had approximately 9 breaks in the right, 9?
So it 13 in 9 days.
13 breaks in 9 days. Fortunately, they were on small diameter mains, which don't result in a widespread loss of pressure or of a water quality concern. We had our crew pretty much working around the clock, which I would like to commend. It was absolutely brutal being out in the cold. We also brought in a contractor to help keep up with the breaks to fix them in the most expeditious manner.
Thank you, and I heard from nothing but good things about that, the repairs and everything, so I really appreciate that, to the staff and the employees for doing that, because I heard it was really, really cold. Yes, Mr. Clement?
Thank you. I want to also commend the water utility for that work, and I also want to commend the city for using the Nixle Emergency Alert System to get the word out to the residents of those neighborhoods that there were problems with the water and that they needed to be alarmed. I hope this year that we can move towards having a written policy for when we use the Nixle system, and that's something I'll be talking about at future meetings. Also on the topic of the water, at previous meetings I alerted the council to the fact that although the DEP is only currently investigating, and the Attorney General's office only currently investigating problems with reporting at the utility since 2010, that in fact the city had been fined in 2008 for failure to report issues or failure to test the water properly. And I asked at the last meeting whether, or 2 meetings ago, whether or not it was investigated if anybody got sick as a result of those problems in 2008. Has anyone looked into that since then?
Mr. Watson, I'm sure we'll be able to respond to that.
To see Mr. Lockyer, and I know that you got a response, right?
No, as a matter of fact, he said he could not tell me.
No, but he sent you the response about the fine that we got, and what was the reason for it, that you were asking for that, right?
Yes, and what's critically important to me is, did anyone look into whether people got sick? And I asked that, and he couldn't remember, even though he was in charge of the water utility at that time.
Well, once he gets back, we will make sure that to see if he has that, if he has that information, if there's anything that we are able to, document. Okay?
I think it's really important, every time there's a problem with the water, we should check if people got sick.
Which we had done at the hospital. I don't know if you recall that one thing that they did, Mr. Marat said, when the last incident that happened, he called the hospital, there was no any increase of any amount of people with any big situation in the stomach, so it was done before, so at that time, I'm not sure, but we'll follow up.
Correct. I believe Mr. Baracha has been following the proper procedures. My issue is for the 5 years that we had someone in charge of the water utility who was unqualified.
And we will get that answer for you as much as we can.
Do you believe that there's no resume on file for Mr. Laughlin? The business administrator of the city, if you ask for a copy of his resume, not only does the city not have it on file, but he refuses to give it. Do you believe that?
I'm not aware of that.
Right, well,
Did you ask for a resume as a citizen of a resident? Why was it that you were looking? Because I know you have made 20,000 requests, over requests, that the staff is, is trying to get to them as soon as you can. Because we're gonna need, I always say that we're gonna need a full-time person just to answer all these Oprah requests. But I'm not sure, I'm not aware of that you asked for the resume. I will follow up on that. I'm not sure why. Mr. Hamilton.
Mr. Laughlin's work was well known with either the Housing Authority or the Parking, or I think it was the Housing Authority before he was ever named as a business administrator of the city. Personal knowledge of somebody's performance is a whole lot better than what they put down on a piece of paper, in my view. I don't know how Mayor Cahill felt at the time. And I'm not sure whether he was appointed by Mayor Cahill or by Mayor Lynch. I'm just not sure of the year.
But if we will find out why the resume, if it's something that it should be on file, why?
You want to do a resume of 2014, so for a hiring that was done in about 2000 and, I don't know what, 8, something like that.
I don't, in another job, you have to have a resume, you have to have it there, so it doesn't matter when you're with, but, you know, I don't know why, we will find out and see what happens.
I want to thank Mr. Hamilton for his comments. That makes a lot of sense. Maybe the housing authority has the resume on file, so I'll ask them.
So ask them to see, and hopefully they have it, because you know the floods that happened many years ago, hopefully it was before that, and now they keep it here on record.
Right, and so just to spell my concern out, my concern is that Mr. Laughlin was appointed after the unfortunate suicide of the previous water director. He was
No, he was not. He was appointed when Greg Ferenbach left city employment as city administrator. Jesus Christ.
Just answer that question, don't get upset. Mr. Carter, you have been corrected. You stand corrected.
Actually, he was hired to be the business administrator in 1993. I'm well aware of that. But after the suicide of the water director, he was given an additional job, an additional department to supervise, the water utility. That happened in 2007, and the reason stated for him getting that appointment was not that he knew anything about managing a water utility, but in fact that he was familiar with the federal investigation into the man who unfortunately committed suicide, and that he would be the best person to respond to the federal government's inquiries. And it was said that at the time it would be a temporary appointment, and that appointment lasted 5.5 years. And he was given additional salary for that job, even though he was unqualified for it, and even though this was perhaps the worst part of the water utility's history, spanning more than 100 years.
Respect that happened before. I don't know if you addressed the previous council that was here about that. So what is it that you're trying, what is the bottom line that you're trying to say with all of this?
In my humble opinion, Mr. Laughlin should be terminated. He was in charge of the water utility for 5.5 years, including the time when the utility was lying to the people and to the state government. And even though it's being pinned on one man who ran the treatment plant and was in charge of the reporting, Mr. Laughlin was asleep at the wheel. He was the one in charge of the utility. And I feel bad speaking about someone who's not here tonight to speak back, but he's on vacation. And I'm just saying, Mr. Laughlin was the man in charge there. I would like to see his resume to see if he had any qualifications at all to run a water utility. And I also think it's concerning that he was given 2 city departments to run. There's only 10 departments in the city, and we need a head, an individual devoted to each one of them. So when he was appointed in this temporary arrangement, that should not have been allowed to continue any more than a few months, but instead it was allowed to continue for 5.5 years, and that's when these problems happened, and he should lose his job over it. This is serious stuff.
That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. I disagree with some of the things that you say, but that's, thank you for your comment. Anything else?
One last thing. I was a little disappointed to see former county prosecutor Bruce Kaplan is going to be our next Superior Court judge across the street.
Governor Christie, I'm fighting on it. Not us. Go ahead and tell him, ask him why. He was the one who nominated him, and he got appointed. So I suggest to talk to our governor.
I am very disappointed in the governor, and I just wanted to ask you how you felt about it, because you'd said when he was leaving the prosecutor job that change is good.
I made that comment, I remember when that happened, that people would say change, and I said that in general term, changes are good, so I don't have anything to say. The governor appointed him, he got approved, it is what it is.
Well, I would like to point out that our state senator, Mr. Bob Smith, was the one who pushed that appointment, who enthusiastically moved his appointment, and I think that anyone who goes to NewBrunswickToday.com and reads our article about his record as the county prosecutor will be equally disappointed that,
Thank you. So
now being entrusted to judge cases, judge the defendants.
Yes, but Christie was the one who made it again. He was the one who nominated.
He's a terrible
Go talk to
governor.
the- go talk
We
to the
agree about that.
United
He is an awful governor,
But
and
he
he
was
needs
the
to
one
go
who put
too.
it forward. It wasn't anybody else, it was him, so, but thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
We talked about Mayors Against Illegal Guns. Just to let everybody know, it's a multi-level organization which anybody can join, not just Mayor Cahill. I'm actually a part of Mayors Against Illegal Guns. I've been to their national rally, I've been to their local rally, and if people are really serious about it, you can get involved with it. We've been plugging stuff already. You can go right to their website, you can join it and find out about their numerous events. And it's not just, like I said, I was at their national rally in DC, and the number of mayors that I ran into was very minuscule. It's really the grassroots people on the ground. The reason why they say Mayors Against Illegal Guns is because it was run by Bloomberg previously, and that gave the umbrella over it. So if anybody's really serious about it, we look forward to people joining the organization.
Thank you. Ms. Smith? Name and address, please.
Bernadette Shabazz, Somerset, New Jersey. I came this evening because I had a question for you, Ms. Escobar. I had the opportunity to review the December 30th video recording of the council meeting, and you made a point to advise my husband that you wanted to meet with him. And my question is, what is the purpose of that meeting? If he comes to you and he demonstrates everything that he's been demonstrating for the past few years, what is it that you can do? Is this a meeting just for you to personally know what's going on? Because at this point, we've been dealing with a lot of running around, a lot of disrespect, a lot of arrogance, a lot of lying and deceiving. We don't have time for games. We don't have time to waste any more time. You know, if sitting down with you just so you can know, but you have no power to, you know, make a change, then what is the purpose? So I wanted to know what the real purpose and what could potentially be the outcome of a sit-down meeting with you.
Yes, it's nice to meet you. The reason I did ask Mr. Shabazz to meet is because I know that he has been coming, you know, and we have heard all the situation that, of the case. Usually here at the meetings, I'm getting information, so the reason I said that I wanted to meet with him is to go through from the, you know, sit down, him and I, from the top, you know, from what happened to the beginning to up to this. Because I am, and he knows that I expressed that, you know, to him. I want to have a good understanding of the whole situation.
Okay.
Just so I could look at it, see, and even when I spoke to him, I said, we're not talking about the case itself. I'm not talking about anything related to that. It's just the process from the beginning. Because I want to understand it. Because I am concerned that it has taken too long, and I want to see where there's the areas that need to be improved, or what worked and what didn't work. But we've been hearing, he has been giving us the information here, but we need to sit down because we hear it here. But if I have it, you know, in writing, and I have one by one, I do have a better understanding of what happened and how to move forward in terms of the process related to the community liaison process with the internal affairs and so forth.
Because in the end, I guess my question is, in the end, after doing that, do you have a power or an authority to enhance this procedure to make it actually work? Or, you know, what effect is it going to have by talking with you? I just don't want him sitting down with anybody else, wasting any more time just because someone wants to understand. If you don't have any authority or any means to make it better, don't waste this time. You know?
And I understand that, and I appreciate that you're saying that. As much power as I could tell you is that I'm here, I'm in the city council, and if there's something that I in which we have done in the past, this council is very open to discussing different issues, and if it's something that we see, what I could assure you is that I will listen. If there's anything, I will bring it forth, the information, and if it's something that it needs to be changed, I could give you 100% confidence that I will fight for it, that I will try to do what is, you know, if there's something that I feel. So I will give you that. Whether it's gonna change or not, that's up to, you know, but I will bring forth the issue and I will speak on the issue. So I could give you that, if that would make you feel, you know, confused or not, I'm not sure, but I could assure you that I will be the voice. Talking if there's anything that needs to be addressed in terms of the process of what we have right now.
Although I'm not particularly happy that my husband is being a guinea pig, so to speak, to try to test out, you know, if this process is going to work. What I don't think a lot of people understand is the behind the scenes. You know, it doesn't make any sense that someone has to fight 4 years so hard because the allegations are against a police officer. You had a young lady sit here that just said the cops are calling her names because she's in the community, she cares, she wants improvements. It seems as if, and I say this in a sense that I've dealt with different departments within the city of New Brunswick, and there's an arrogant tone that really needs to change. You have attorneys sitting here that can't compose themselves when comments are being made. There's facial expressions and, you know, and sighs and mumbling going on. I mean, you guys are professionals. You're here for the public, but yet you can't even compose yourself because you don't agree with something that someone says. I've seen that within the court system with the trial that my husband went through, the arrogance from the magistrate to the officers. And you know, you can read a lot in someone's demeanor. When you're sitting here and I can see, I mean, I understand they're taking notes because I understand their position, but I paid attention that the only 3 that have given the public their undivided attention were you, Ms. Escobar, the gentleman to my left, and the lady to my right. And if you're here for the public, you should be focused. Everybody should be paying attention, not on their cell phones, you know? And I mean, I understand there's certain things may need to be said pertaining to something that someone is, you know, saying that they need to respond to, but that's not the vibe that is given. And it's almost throughout the entire system. I've walked this process with my husband for the past 4 years, and I've seen the tone. It's an arrogant tone. It's a tone that, you know, just get out of here, we're not going to do anything for you kind of tone. And why does it take 4 years for somebody to get justice? You know, I mean, I don't know what Mr. Crabtree spoke on as far as the gentleman, he just about suicide, but just the response from your attorney was, it was so personal. You understand what I'm saying? And then it was the other gentleman when he questioned, you know, Mr. Mahoney. He said, well, you know, to his personal opinion, he's been an exceptional worker. But I think that there's a bias there. And that goes into the police, the same thing that happened within the police department. If you make a complaint about an officer to the police department, they're not going to do anything about it because they think that they have model police officers. And all a police officer has to do is say, I didn't do it. And now it's taken my husband 4 years, and no matter how much proof he presents, it's like, well, we're investigating. How long does this investigate? The facts speak for themselves. And it's time to like wrap this up. I said this before when Mr. Cahill was here. I said it, you know, New Brunswick needs some change. If you're the mayor of this city and people are questioning why isn't he here, why isn't he here? You're supposed to be for the people. He should be number one to get here every day, to sit and listen to what people have to say, because you're supposed to be in charge. You're supposed to be the most concerned. Why is it that he has the leisure of saying he's gonna come or he's not gonna come? We have to talk to you, and then you have to go to him, and you know, or we have to go to his office, or my husband writes letters, nothing gets responded to. He's not doing his job. And I just feel that, you know, there needs to really be a change here, because you can't expect the people to come to you if they know they're not going to get any justice. There are a lot of people that just won't deal with it. They won't put up with what my husband has been dealing with for the past 4 years. That's very stressful. You got to go up against a whole police department because their officers are out here doing things wrong. We see them all the time. I don't know what you guys see when you're out and about, and I'm sure you have a different relationship. I worked in a municipality for 10 years. I understand there's a difference. It exists. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. You can be out here in the public and these officers are, they have a bad day, they're human, they're gonna wear their shirt, their heart on their sleeve. And they're gonna take their attitudes out on people, but when it's brought to the people that it's supposed to be brought to, it's nothing is ever done. And that's just not fair. There needs to be a change. And no matter how New Brunswick danced around this whole situation that's going on with my husband, he's not gonna stop, because we can bring hundreds of people in here to tell you that this man is a noble man who does not bother anyone. And he was disrespected, his rights were violated, and nobody wants to believe it. And if you do believe it, you're not gonna admit it. It's like this code, this lifestyle, like, well, yeah, we believe that he really was violated, but we can't admit it. It's like you don't wanna admit the truth. The hearing officer was supposed to hear it and make a recommendation. Now he's doing an investigation. Well, I didn't know he was supposed to investigate it. Or is it the police department is doing another investigation? Well, if that's the case, why wasn't my husband advised that an investigation was reopened? I thought that was the purpose of the hearing. So, there's so many avenues that are being taken that it just shows that everything is just trying to, cover everything up. And the length of time that it takes is ridiculous. It doesn't take this long. It really shouldn't take this long. You look at the facts. When you're arrested, the police arrest you, you're guilty until proven innocent. And it's like these officers, or if you're on the right administration board or you have the right job, you're innocent until proven guilty. But not for the average person, and that's not fair. And there really needs to be a change in the city of New Brunswick.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just to let you know, I checked my P.O. box today and received a letter from Ms. Gaden today. I guess this would serve as the status update. So since the last time I was here, she has now provided the status update. And basically, in her status update, along with that status update, she provided me a copy of the transcripts of the hearing. So let me just make that clear for the record. And in her status update, she basically states that subsequent to the last city council meeting, I contacted Judge Hoffman, who is the hearing officer, who indicated that he was on vacation. Now, if you recall, this hearing, and this is what I mean by this is obvious nonsense, because this is lame too. Anybody with any intelligence can see through this. My hearing was October 24th of last year. It's the middle of January 2014. My hearing was 3 months ago. Now, the excuse that's being given for why I don't have a decision is because the hearing officer was on vacation. It doesn't say when he went on vacation. So if the hearing was October 24th and you went on vacation, did you go on vacation directly after the hearing and you've been on vacation for 3 months? No. So this is another lame attempt at diverting attention from the true issue. But it goes on to say, he is returning on, coincidentally, he is returning on January 16th, tomorrow. It's ridiculous. I've discussed with him when he could expect to receive, when we could expect to receive his final report. And he indicated that he would need at least 2 days after his return. So let's just use our common sense and let's look at this. So he can go on vacation, come back, and 2 days after vacation, he can give a decision. That's pretty quick. 2 days after coming back from vacation, it only takes you 2 days to give up the decision. So then, why has it taken so long for me to get a decision? Why has it taken 3 months? If he can come back from a vacation and only 2 days later can provide us with a decision. It appears to me he is part of the whole conspiracy, part of the whole cover-up. I don't trust him either. This is nonsense right here. And anybody with any eyes can see this is nonsense. And I only got this because I came to the last city council meeting and complained. If I wouldn't have did that, I wouldn't have heard anything. Miss Gaden actually only admitted when you questioned her. I've been calling her trying to find out the status of the investigation since December 1st. Yet, I get lied to. And I have proof of that also. I've been lied to. She tells me I haven't heard from the hearing officer. He hasn't told me anything. I don't know anything. I'm waiting to hear from him. Now, when I come here and complain to you, and then you ask her, she knows better than to lie to the council president. And publicly on record where everybody can hear it. So now she's forced to tell the truth and says, oh, an investigation is going on. So I've already proven her to be a liar, clearly. So how can anybody trust the community liaison officer when I've just proven her to be a liar? She lied to me since December 1st, telling me she don't know anything. She hasn't spoken to the hearing officer. She then tells you in front of everybody she spoke to the hearing officer on a couple of occasions, but that he's, based on what was said at the hearing, he's decided to do a better, more thorough investigation. Yet that's not even the capacity he's supposed to operate in. He's not an investigator, he's a hearing officer. The only thing he's supposed to do is hear the evidence that I presented at the hearing. And he's supposed to make a decision based only on the evidence I presented at the hearing. And he's supposed to make his decision soon. He's not supposed to then go out and launch his own independent investigation to try to figure out what. What is his investigation about? I played an audio dispatch recording. I showed him court transcripts, trial transcripts where the officers testified. They never called for backup, and no backup came except for one unit who just happened to show up on their own because they look out for each other. Yet the audio dispatch record, which is a New Brunswick Police Department audio dispatch record, clearly shows that they call for backup. You hear them call for backup, and I am going to set up the meeting with you. I respect the fact that you at least showed enough concern that you would want to have a meeting with me. So therefore, although I share my wife's concern that will it really result in any real effective change, I share my wife's concern on that. But I'm still willing, and as you said, I've been willing to go along with the whole process. I demonstrate my character every time I come here. I cooperate with the process even though I don't believe in the process. Because to me, I'm going to demonstrate that the process is a fraud. It's a sham. So for me, I still have a vested interest in cooperating with the process because I'm going to expose it, and people already know it's a fraud. But if nobody goes through it, we'll say that, and we'll constantly hear, well, nobody has been through the process, so we don't know what works. We'll constantly hear all these kinds of statements. So I'm going to prove it once and for all so that now we will no longer have to hear it. So getting back to the so-called community, really, I'm the community liaison officer. In reality, out in this community, people come to me, Brother Shabazz, cops did this to me. Brother Shabazz, they violated my rights. Can you help me? Can you tell me what should I do? And I'm out in the community all the time. That's my missionary work. That's part of my faith. I do missionary work out here in the streets, helping people fight for their rights. Telling them, well, this is how I would handle it. I always have to make the disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, so therefore I can't provide any legal advice. But I can tell you what I would do and how I would exercise my rights, and you can do the same thing too. So people come to me to learn all the time how to exercise their rights, and many people have actually been able to at least ward off some of the corruption based on me letting them know how I handle things. And when we get back to Ms. Gayden, clearly she lied, said that she didn't hear anything, yet she admits here, oh yeah, well, there's an investigation going on. Like I said, what is the hearing officer investigating? That's not even his job, which again shows something is going on. What do you mean he needs to investigate? If I sit in front of you and I play an audio dispatch recording, you hear the officer saying, send me back up, and then I show you the court transcripts and he says, under oath when I'm cross-examining him, I never call for backup. And no backup ever shows up except for one unit. But when you hear the audio, I say, oh yeah, that's true. Look, play this audio for you. And on the audio, you hear the dispatcher saying, yeah, units 3, 2, 6, 9, and 88 all over the Howard Johnson. And then at the end of the audio dispatch record, you hear either Officer Chang or Officer Riddell get on the radio and thank them. Thanks for all the backup. I mean, what else does the hearing officer need to make a decision? He should have made that decision Johnny on the spot. Oh, damn, that evidence is irrefutable. You know what? You proved your case, Mr. Shabazz. That's what should have happened. But instead, I mean, the only statement that he did make was he said, you should become a lawyer. Now I got an ex-judge telling me after my presentation, telling me I should become a lawyer. And if that's supposed to be a compliment, and I should become a lawyer, then you're acknowledging that I made a good presentation and I proved my case. So why is it taking 3 months to find out what the decision is? And like I said, it's not his role to investigate anything. He's a hearing officer. Anybody who understands what a hearing officer's role is, they don't investigate. And according to the protocols, he's not supposed to investigate. But to further go on with this letter that I received from Ms. Gaden, it goes on to say that with regard to your request regarding audio recording, as I indicated to you, at the city council, since the meeting was attended by a court reporter and also videotaped by you, in my opinion, and here we go with her opinion, where she's allowed to engage in a subjective mentality to justify violating the protocols that she's supposed to follow. In her opinion, there was no need to do a sound recording. Now, the first thing we need to understand is, well, let me just say, she goes on to try to justify it by saying, although this did not follow the letter, she admits it did not follow the letter of the provisions of the protocol, neither did your request for a video recording. Now see, this is the arrogance that my queen talked about. The arrogance. She's trying to justify not doing her job by indirectly blaming me, like, well, I let you do something you wasn't supposed to do, so why are you bothering me about not doing what I was supposed to do? This is the arrogance we're dealing with. Just like the fact that she deliberately left because she knew I was getting ready to speak. But it's okay though, because I got a whole lot more to say. So, the fact that she allowed an extra step, such as me recording the hearing, has nothing to do with her fulfilling her responsibility according to the protocols. Nowhere in the protocols does it prohibit a complainant from bringing in their own independent person to record, right? So since it doesn't prohibit it, and according to the protocol, it says that the hearing is informal. So if it's informal, there's not some rigid, strict rules that say I can't do it. There's nothing rigid and strict about an informal hearing, an informal process. So I requested, hey, because I don't trust her, can I bring somebody to record? Yes, you can. That was the end of it. But that doesn't in any way let her out of her responsibility to follow her own protocols. So she just didn't want to record it, and I can further prove, she says, well, once she agreed to let me record it, then she didn't feel, in her opinion, she didn't need to follow the protocols. And last time we were here, she stated that she even asked me for a copy of the video. Okay, well, the protocols say that she's supposed to sound record the hearing and then afterwards provide a copy of her sound recording to the police director, Anthony Caputo, for him to review it as part of his investigation. He's the investigator, not the hearing officer. The police director is supposed to then launch an investigation, and he needs that sound recording. She didn't ask me if she could have a copy of the video until after the fact. We were already in the hearing, already filming, and then later on, towards the end, she said, would you mind providing me with a copy of that? I'm like, well, I don't mind. You know, it's Mr. McDougal's video camera, but I don't mind. So, if she's asking me after the fact, that means she was never prepared to do a sound recording in the first place. So she's lying again when she tries to use me and indirectly blame me for her failing to fulfill her responsibilities and make a sound recording. She didn't know whether I was going to provide her a copy. She had no idea. Like I said, she asked after the fact. So she was never prepared to record because she didn't want to make a sound recording. She violated her own protocols again. She goes on here to say, and when it comes to protocols, you're not allowed to be subjective and use your opinion. When it comes to protocols, you have to follow the protocols. You have to follow what's in the protocol. The only time you can use some leeway is if there's nothing prohibiting what's being requested. But as far as the things that are stated as mandatory, that this is what you're supposed to do step by step, she's supposed to follow that, irregardless if I'm allowed to do some extra things that are not prohibited. She goes on to say, with regard to your comment regarding Director Caputo's meeting with you to discuss the investigation, I do not read the protocol to specifically state this. The protocol states that the police director will ensure a thorough investigation is conducted which will include interviewing the complainant, his or her witnesses, the officers involved in any and all evidence. Now, when I was here, I didn't ask for any meeting. This is what I mean by this shows the incompetency. Before I thought they were just deceptive. Now I think it's a combination of both. They're incompetent and deceptive. Because I never asked for a meeting with the police director. He's corrupt too. I don't care about meeting with the police director. I could care less about having a meeting with him. What I requested was to know what the hearing officer's decision was. That's what I requested. I was like, it's been 2 months. At that time, it was 2 months. I was like, it's been over 2 months. I don't know what his decision is. I want to know what his decision is, or at least a status update. That's what I requested. Then I went along and started reading the protocols, and the protocols are the things that state that the police director is supposed to interview me, which is what she just said. She just quoted that the police director will ensure a thorough investigation is conducted, which will include interviewing the complainant. So all I pointed out was he hasn't interviewed me. So how is he doing a thorough investigation when the protocols say that that's part of, that includes a thorough investigation? You have to interview the complainant. I never asked for a meeting. I said he's not doing his job. I'm saying the police director is not following the protocol, the community liaison officer doesn't follow the protocol, and the hearing officer is not following the protocol because he's launching his own private investigation and then go on vacation in the middle of it. I mean, this is terrible, and anybody listen to it knows it's terrible. How do you launch a private investigation that you're not even supposed to launch and then go on vacation in the middle of the damn investigation? And then, oh, but I'll be back tomorrow, and in a couple of days after that, it's only going to take me 2 days. I mean, this is obvious, and I get so frustrated coming here saying things that I know. I know you're an intelligent woman, and I know that what I'm saying makes perfect sense to you. But as my wife said, my queen made it clear, I believe many of you know. And in your heart, you may actually support me. You may actually, in your heart of hearts, say, this man been shackled. He's a good guy, it's clear, and they did him wrong. But you allow your political positions to still make you be quiet. Because you may be concerned about what you may have to lose if you support me. But as far as I'm concerned, your job as leaders in the community is supposed to be to stand up for what's right, irregardless of what the consequences may be, whatever sacrifices. And you shouldn't have to make any sacrifice. If you have to be concerned about making sacrifices for standing up what's right, then that is also clear evidence that you're working for a corrupt administration. Because how can standing up for what's right harm you? How can that come back to hurt you in any way? Unless the people above you are crooked. So the fact, if you're nervous and you're scared to speak out on my behalf and stand up for what's right and admit that I've proven my case, that clearly indicates you know the system is corrupt too, whether you admit it or not. And the people are not stupid. We see it for what it is. But I move on off of that and say, I actually wanted to provide you, I know I'm not supposed to come up there, so can I hand this to someone? I wanted to provide you with a copy of the protocols so that you can see it for yourself. And real quick, if you could just turn to the second page of the protocol and look at the number 5, post-hearing, so that you can see it for yourself. Towards the bottom of the page, number 5, post-hearing. It says, letter A, following the hearing, the community liaison officer will assist the complainant in the completion of internal affairs report form. Now, I'm assuming she didn't do that because I've already been through that part of the process, so I'm not blaming her for that part. I've been filing complaints, so she doesn't need to help me with that. But we move down to letter B. This is what's supposed to happen. In those instances involving previously filed complaints, and I have 2 previously filed complaints, the hearing officer, now this is what they're supposed to do, the hearing officer and the community liaison officer shall determine from the Internal Affairs Bureau to the extent permitted under the Attorney General guidelines and New Jersey state law whether the matter was previously reviewed by the city's police department and if so, what action was taken with regard to same. This information shall be reviewed by the hearing officer with the complainant to determine what further action should be taken if need be, if need any. Now, the hearing officer and the community liaison officer has not followed this part of the protocol, and it's there in black and white, that they're supposed to sit down with me, both the hearing officer and the community liaison officer, with the complainant to determine what further action needs to be taken. They're violating the protocols, and I have the proof in black and white. There's no way around it. Then we go on to letter C. In those instances where no prior complaint was filed, the matter will be referred to the Police Department's Internal Affairs Bureau of Investigation and review in accordance with the Attorney General guidelines. So everything they're supposed to be doing is supposed to be in accordance with the Attorney General guidelines. D says the police director will ensure, which this is the part that Ms. Gayden quoted, but actually didn't quote properly. Because she's quoting it and it's saying he's supposed to interview me, which is what I said last time I was here, that he failed to interview me. I didn't ask for a meeting. I don't give a damn about having no meeting with the police director. I want him to do his job, though. I want him to follow the rules like everybody else has to follow the rules. I want him to follow the process. He's not following the process. You can't ask me to follow the process and the damn police director won't follow the process. He's supposed to sit down and interview. He's supposed to be launching an investigation. But I'll move on past that and say, let's look at the Attorney General guidelines. Because the other copy I provided you with is a copy of the Attorney General guidelines. Are you okay? Because I saw you were in the middle of reading something.
So I was reading this back to number D, where it says the police director will ensure the internal affairs investigation is conducted. I think that just to, so we are clear, I don't think it's that the police director have to interview you, but the internal affairs office, they need to interview you. Not the police director, but the internal affairs.
Okay, let me
That's
answer.
what I understand from this, Ms. Chavez.
No problem.
I just wanted to.
Now, I respectfully disagree, and let me just share with you why I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Right? D says, it starts off saying, the police director will ensure a thorough internal affairs investigation is conducted, which will include interviewing the complainant. Right?
Investigation.
Now you're saying that means he's supposed to make. I have the problem with internal affairs. That's the very reason I went to the internal affairs hearing review process, because I'm saying internal affairs didn't properly investigate my complaint. I'm saying they're corrupt. So why would I sit down with them and let them interview? They already interviewed me. Lieutenant Carroll interviewed me a year after I filed the complaint, but he interviewed me. He recorded the interview. So why would I need to sit down with him again? That wouldn't make any sense. I'm supposed to be sitting down with somebody new, which would be the police director, who I've never sat down and spoke to. You can't, if I'm saying that internal affairs is corrupt and they're the one that's the problem, that's why I went beyond them to the internal affairs hearing review. Why would I then be sent back to the same corrupt internal affairs and sit down and let them interview me for a second time? That doesn't make sense to me. So it would have to be the police director. If it means what you say, then that just means they're sending me in a revolving door, which means it was set up to fail from the beginning. So I hope it don't mean what you said, but I don't put anything past me. It could.
Mr. Hamilton, have you seen this or not?
I read it. I happen to agree with you, Council President.
But what I would like to also point out is they quote the Attorney General guidelines. I gave you a copy of the Attorney General guidelines. Went online, printed it out. I reviewed it pretty thoroughly. There's a section that says accepting reports of officer misconduct. In my report, I pointed out that there were many John Doe officers that showed up. I didn't have their names. If you look down in the left-hand corner, it's on page 16. It's 51 pages altogether, but it's on page 16 of 51.
16?
Yes, ma'am.
You know that we're doing this pretty fast. I'm gonna have to read this again.
I plan to sit down with you.
I'm just following you, but you know that this is, I'm gonna have to read and
If you look here, I only have about 4 pages in my hand out of that 51, so I'm not going through all 51 pages.
No, I'm just telling you, just remember, I'm following you, but I have to read this. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
16. Accepting reports alleging officer misconduct.
Right, so it goes on now, turn to page 17. Now, I just wanted you to see the heading that it was on. Page 17, towards the bottom, it says, like the last 2 paragraphs, all complaints should be investigated, as long as the complaint contains sufficient factual information to warrant an investigation. In cases where the identity of the officer is unknown, the internal affairs investigator should use all available means to determine proper identification. Yet Captain Miller did not use all means to identify these officers. I've actually, up to today, been trying to get the identification of all those John Doe officers, and he's been refusing to give me that information. And he finds all kinds of excuses, and one of the main excuses he utilizes is the Attorney General guidelines. And I just quoted from you that he's supposed to get the information, he's supposed to find out who these officers are. And nothing in the Attorney General guidelines says that he can't provide the complainant with that information. Yet, when I filed my complaint back in 2010 and made it clear that it was a lot of officers that surrounded me and they conducted an illegal search after snatching me out of my car, nowhere has he provided any information. How has he conducted, and he was part of the internal affairs investigation, how has he conducted a proper internal affairs investigation where he exonerates the officer when I can present audio dispatch that shows they were there, I present court transcripts that shows the officers committed aggravated perjury and lied, and yet he keeps quoting Attorney General guidelines to prevent giving me information and evidence that, exculpatory evidence that proved my innocence. Yet the thing he's quoting says he's supposed to use all means to identify the officers. So when I say it's John Doe officers that were there but I couldn't tell who they were, he's supposed to find out who they were. He's supposed to want to know who they were and want to help me discipline these officers to make sure that they don't do this to anybody again. But instead you cover it up for him. I'm proving he's crooked. I don't know what more I got to give you, but I'm going to give you some more. We can move on to page 26 of 51. And when we sit down, like I said, I got a lot more to show you, but I'm just trying to give you a brief overview to show you there's no denying what I'm saying. Page 26 of 51, it says Internal Affairs Investigation Procedures. So since Captain Miller likes to quote the Attorney General guidelines, we're going to quote some tonight. Have you found the page, Council President?
Yes.
It says, in the fourth paragraph, starting from the top, the fourth paragraph down. The Internal Affairs investigator may use any lawful investigative techniques, including inspecting public records, questioning witnesses, interviewing the subject officer, questioning agency employees, and surveillance. Now, the first thing I want you to keep your mind on is he may use any investigative techniques, and the first one is the most important to me, inspecting public records. So, if he didn't inspect public records, he didn't do a proper investigation. This is part of what he's supposed to do as an internal affairs officer. To conduct a proper investigation, he's supposed to follow these internal affair procedures set out by the Attorney General guidelines. Now, if you turn, this is the last page. If you turn to page 27 of 51, this is very important. Where it says, reports, records, and other documents. It further tells them, the Attorney General says, this is how you conduct a proper investigation in internal affairs. It says, all relevant reports should be obtained and preserved as expeditiously as possible. Internal department reports relating to a subject officer's duties should be examined. Examples of such reports, this is important, examples of such reports include arrest reports, investigative reports, radio logs. That's key. You don't do a proper investigation unless you get radio logs. Patrol logs, vehicle logs, and evidence logs pertaining to or completed by the officer. It goes on to say the investigator should also examine technologies. Now, if you recall, I came here asking about the CAD system. Computer aided, which stands for, last time I was here, he said, when I talked about CAD, CAD, ADL, GPS, he said, Captain Miller said, Mr. Shabazz is throwing around a lot of letters. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Now, as I stated before, he's the captain of the police force. I'm talking about law enforcement technology. How does the captain of the police force not know what the hell I'm talking about? And if so, if he doesn't, that shows he's incompetent and shouldn't be the captain. You can't be the leader of a police force. You're the leader of a law enforcement agency, and you don't even know the damn law enforcement technology you're utilizing? Yet, me, just a guy off the street, a layman, I know what the hell it is. CAD, computer-aided dispatch. ADL, automatic vehicle locator. I mean, this is simple stuff for anybody who just takes the time to read it. It's not that complicated. So he either lied when he said he didn't know what I was talking about, all those letters make no sense. He either lied and he's a liar and a deceiver, or he's either completely incompetent and not qualified to be the captain of the police. But it goes on further, and he further proved that he didn't do a proper investigation. Because if he didn't even know what the hell I'm talking about, that means he didn't even go look for this stuff. Yet, Attorney General guidelines say that the investigator should also examine technologies which utilize digital recording. These include digital telephone and radio records, computer-aided dispatch systems, and mobile data terminals, which is all the technology in that article that I found in my research, where Joseph Cantonese and another government official said they just paid $900,000 a contract to New World Systems to install all of this technology. 10 years ago. So I know the technology is either of the same level or better 10 years later. Yet he didn't know that his own law enforcement agency had this technology, and he's the one in charge of conducting internal affairs investigations, and he's quoting Attorney General guidelines when he wants to deny me evidence that will prove what I'm saying and prove these officers are crooked. But he doesn't know that the Attorney General guidelines say these are part of internal affairs policy and procedure. This is what he's supposed to do. I don't know how much more evidence you need. I'm not even going to go on. Like I said, there's 51 pages. I got more to show you, but I'm going to end that with that. So the last thing I will simply say is this. I don't know what the city council standard for a good police officer, because I noticed this too. When we criticize, everybody on the other side is quick. I'm not even going to say everybody, but a lot of colleagues, a lot of people who work for the government are quick to say, well, I know them to be a good person. Oh, they do a great job. Quick to defend them. And so then I had to question and say, well, what are your standards for a good police officer? Because according to the oath of office that they take, it says that they're supposed to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and protect individual rights. That's the standard of a good police officer. Any police officer who does not defend the Constitution or uphold the Constitution, uphold people's constitutional rights, and protect their individual rights is a crooked police officer. There's no exception to that. How do you sign an oath? And I have their oaths. I actually have the oaths of the officers. I have the oaths of Mayor Cahill. I have the oaths, I believe, of Magistrate Philip Burr. How do you sign an oath, a solemn oath? I solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution. They're lying. They're not upholding it. They're violating the Constitution. They're violating my constitutional rights, and they're taking every step possible to cover it up. So, I even have a letter, and I'm going to provide it to you later, but I have a letter where I wrote it to, when he was Lieutenant Miller, I wrote it to him personally. Sent him a copy of the audio dispatch and spelled out at every minute and every second when these officers are lying and being identified that they showed up at the scene. Yet he still exonerated the officers. So now I just presented the evidence to you. How did he exonerate them, and how can you justify it? If an officer lies on the court transcripts, and what I'm going to show you further is when you read through the Attorney General guidelines, it includes that the investigator must get court transcripts if there's been a trial. That's part of the internal affairs policy and procedures. The proper investigation includes, proper documents also include getting court transcripts. So, if he did a proper investigation, he was supposed to get the court transcripts and compare them with the audio dispatch that I sent him, and then he would have seen the same thing that the hearing officer just saw 3 months ago, and that you will see in a few days whenever you want to set this meeting. There's no question I've proven my case. And so what I'm telling you is when you make statements too like, there's a few bad apples, that's false. There's a few good apples. You got to reverse that. There's a few good apples and a whole lot of bad apples. And the bad apples are at the top. He was a lieutenant when I sent him this information. Somehow he got promoted to captain. I don't see how. He don't even know what law enforcement technology they have. And then he exonerates officers when I send him clear-cut evidence that proves their guilt. That then proves to me he's crooked and he's part of the conspiracy. So I don't trust him any further than Lieutenant Carroll, then Lieutenant Miller, now Captain Miller, both conspired to cover up for those officers, ignored the evidence I sent them, and just found officers innocent. Oh, they're exonerated. Yeah, we did a thorough investigation, but... And I only had to meet the preponderance standard. I didn't even have to meet the reasonable doubt standard, which is a much heavier burden. I only had to meet the preponderance, which, what's more likely to have occurred? What else I got to do? So if you keep saying that there's a few bad apples, yet I got 10 officers who surrounded me while they illegally searched my car. That's way more than a few bad apples. Then I got Lieutenant Carroll and Captain Miller help cover it up. That's way more than, now you got 2 more at it, and they in key positions. I write the mayor, he won't even respond, won't do anything to help me. Then he's a bad apple. I'm sending him the evidence and he won't help me. I send a complaint to Middlesex County Prosecutor Bruce Kaplan. He won't respond. Everybody just tries to ignore me and I sent him the proof too, all the evidence. So clearly, now you have a conspiracy that goes all the way from the bottom to the top. I don't see what anybody can say that can get around what I just presented. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, sir.
So now, Kevin, 291 Cedar Street in Brunswick, New Jersey. I want to first start off by saying a lot of these issues that we confront to you guys, and you guys, I don't think you would change. I don't think any of you guys would change. Because I realize that you are diseased people. I realize your main focus is fiat currency. I realize that you can care less about human beings. You didn't get in this profession to care about human beings. I realize you operate off of a double standard. I realize that what goes on the face that you put on here is not the face that you put on in that office when you really do your devilish ways and your devilish deeds. I'm a different person. People, contacted me and said, Jamel, why don't you ever run for city council? Because if I was on that side of the table, I would have been flipped that table upside down. If I had to come there and sit there and listen to what these people present, I would have dumped that table upside down. I would have knocked everything off. I would have went bananas. That's just the type of person I am. And I know that I don't think I'm strong enough a human being to get into that system and make a change. And there's a lot of issues concerned. It's a double standard. You sat here and you chastised me. You said, Tomel, it's 2014. You like to cut people off. This is a new year. We're not going to put up with that. But you sat here and you let him say whatever he wanted to Charlie, and you didn't even interrupt him. You didn't give him that stern speech that you gave me. That lets me know that you operate off a double standard. You guys look out for each other. You guys take care of each other. It's us against them. You guys come here, it's almost 9 o'clock. Okay, I miscalculated. I said you make $100 house. It's $187.50 if you only did council meetings. You said you correspond through emails. Maybe that, I don't know if that's here or home. But you guys make a nice penny to sit here. And you guys make a nice penny to hear us complain. And we've been complaining. I've been complaining. Shabazz been complaining. Charlie's been complaining. Everybody's been complaining. You guys have been writing down. You guys have been staring at us with a still face. You guys have been nodding and agreeing with us because the cameras are on. You've been doing that. But you haven't been making change. And the reason I get a problem is when you campaign, it's a different person. First thing you said to Charlie, well, if you don't agree with the appointments, then you go over to the governor. If you were campaigning, you would have never told a community resident to go do something that you could possibly do. You don't respect us because it's not campaign season. The year that you campaign, that's when you show us respect. But the rest of the year is with a gun under your shoe. He's right, the police officers are corrupt. I'm not going to talk about past experience, I'll just talk about what happened tonight. A young lady said that police picked with her and called her names. Instead of Captain Miller grabbing that, if I was a captain, and I heard that, I would have pulled the young lady aside, come into this office, let me speak to you real quick, what's going on? No, he focused on pulling Charlie Gayden into that office and talk to her. He let that young lady run off. So my thing is, there's always a double standard. And I'm sick of it. We're sick of it. We're sick of this entire process. And you still face this like there's nothing we can do. Like I said, I don't come here to change it. I don't come in to I was hoping there's only 3 people here. I'm hoping the Huffs and Puffs hurry up and leave so I can get in with y'all for real. I can make y'all bring a pillow next time. All I need is you guys right there. I don't even need that camera on. I hope this one day I come in here, nobody's in here. Just me and you. I don't care about putting on a show, but I am focused on the decisions you make. Because it's going to come a point in time where you're not going to be council persons. You're not going to be in the position that you're fighting for. And I was fortunate, yesterday I was fortunate enough to go to a planning board meeting. And, a lot of times I go to, council meetings, and I was impressed. I was kind of upset that I'd never been to a planning board meeting before, my first time. But, that's where a lot of the big business is going also. That's why I will not neglect council meetings. I think I need to go to planning board meetings. But you guys all work on the same team. Joseph Catanese is on the planning board meeting. He was also present when I raised a concern about a police officer admitting that he harassed me admitting that other officers harassed me on other occasions. We got 5 officers that normally harass Tormel Pittman. Joseph Catanese was present, and you guys said that you would speak to him. I don't know what was the outcome, but did you ever, I think, after Captain Miller, did you ever speak to Joseph Catanese as far as me being harassed off the word that Mark Patton said? Did you ever contact Joseph Catanese?
Captain Miller, I know you had a comment before that. Are you able to answer that question?
First, I'd just like to say that this is another example of Mr. Pittman speaking without knowing the facts. Ms. Moore came to me several days ago and expressed exactly what she said here. I'm working with her on that. I am fully aware of what she said up here. That's why I didn't go running after her. I've already been in dialogue with her. And we already discussed the Catanese thing several meetings ago. I'm not going to address that again.
No, we didn't. He was absent the last meeting I was at, and he said he would speak to Joseph Catanese, and we would get to the bottom of what was heard, what was said. See, he said, listen, he said that we already spoke. I don't care if people leave and huff and puff. I don't come here to play. I don't come here to play. I don't care if people think I'm a grandstander. I don't care. 2 years, obviously, I don't care. Officers can't, I'm hearing officers talk about me in nightclubs when I'm nowhere present. I know who I am. I know who I am, so I don't care what people, what face frowns up. He said that we would contact Joseph Catanese in response to what he heard when me and Captain Miller was present having a meeting. Joseph Catanese said that he spoke to Mark Pappas, and Mark Pappas said there's 5 officers that admitted that they harassed Tormel Pittman. And those are the 5 officers. Now you got a captain saying that. I don't want to get into it because that was the last meeting. What do you have to say about that captain's response?
No, I think that what we were saying is Captain Miller discussed that in the past, and as a matter of fact, at the last, before I went on vacation, I was the one who said that I would contact Joey Catanese.
Okay.
But then I was the one. I went on vacation. I've been out for 3 weeks. So, and I know that he was on vacation also. He was out of the country. But I just got back on Saturday. So I said that I would contact him. I remember because I have it in my notes. Because I keep notes and I go back to things. And I failed to contact him because I was out of the country. So I will follow up and find out about the conversation that he has.
You will follow up?
Yes, sir.
And can you also follow up on the incident that happened in December 11th?
With him?
When my brother was,
You mentioned that he went to headquarters, but we discussed that. I think that we discussed that also at the meeting, that they confused you, brother, with you.
But I don't think he needs to go through that. And also, I wanted, being that Glenn Patterson is here, I wanted to know what changes were made in the housing department as far as security goes, because I understand that my wife went through the situation with the irate person. I don't know if anybody ever contacted that person, or if he's still allowed to come back into the building. But also, I heard that there's a panic button that was fixed, and it goes directly to Glenn Patterson. And if there's a panic button that goes directly to Glenn Patterson, I wanted to know if he's specifically trained in dealing with an irate person, and if so, where did he receive his training, and when was it? When did he get it?
Mr. Patterson, do we have a protocol when there is a person that is irate with, you said in one of the departments, what is the protocol, and if there is a panic button in the office that is...
There is a buzzer. It was placed there because our receptionist had asked for something to be there, so it notified. It does not go to me. It is in our office, so anyone in our office can hear it. If the buzzer is buzzed, we go out there and to see if we can be of assistance. It's probably been in place there for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and to date it has never been pushed when someone is doing it to make a call. It has only been pushed in an accidental thing where someone's knee hit it under the table that it's at. And I tell my staff, and my staff is not the housing inspection staff I think Mr. Pittman's referring to. I'll tell my staff if they feel that they're threatened up there and they can press the buzzer or call the police department, have an officer come up there for assistance. But we put that buzzer in there at the request of our receptionist as a way to assist her, that if she happened to be out there alone, that she could buzz this, because our offices are set off from where she is. so that someone could come out and give her assistance, and she would have a way of contacting us without having to pick up the phone and so forth.
Does the city has a protocol for situations like that? In terms of police, something that happened in your office, what is the protocol that is?
What I've told my staff is if someone is out there and they are being disruptive and they feel threatened, use the buzzer and/or call the police. I can't tell you what the overall city policy is. I don't know if the police department or whatever wants to address that. I've tried to address that with my staff because they brought that up to me as a concern a number of years ago, so we put that in place. I can't do that for other departments. I can only deal with my department.
The problem I have with that is, he's saying that the buzzer doesn't go specifically to him. And there was now he admits that there was a concern before through his staff a few years ago, and this is the only process. Now this situation happens, which is a life or death situation. If a person is irate about a situation that's going on with their house, and they bring a gun to this bed, there's nothing to protect them. For one, you don't even have a camera there. There's no camera watching the person that comes in. Two, I asked Mr. Lachlan to provide jobs for community residents and just have a guy that just sit there. I mean, you guys got we see tonight that you guys got the money. Just put a guy to sit there. You guys don't take no precautionary measures until somebody has a bullet in their head. And this is what the community has to put up with. A buzzer that wasn't operating at the time that this situation, it wasn't operating for a year. It was inoperable for a year, maybe longer than that. But the only time operating, somebody hit their knee by mistake. So he doesn't know within that year if somebody pressed it due to an emergency because it wasn't working. The only reason you fixed the buzzer was because my wife went through this situation. Neglect. And my thing is, now at this point that this situation happened, put cameras in it. Put cameras up. Put a person there with a badge, and so he don't even have to be a police officer, but security for people. Don't think money. You don't think money when it's time to pay each other. So don't think money when it's time to pay a community resident. Put somebody there, employ them, and let them keep people safe. Because he's still putting people at that front desk in that same situation. So I suggest to the council, safety first. Think money second. And please make sure that we don't react off a situation after a person is dead. And I also want to admit that Captain Miller said that there wasn't, Captain Miller said that there wasn't a homicide for this year. And the obituary that Ms. Moore had, the young man that recently passed away, he passed away because he was beaten up on French Street, internal bleeding. He ultimately went to the hospital and he passed away in the hospital. Now, if that doesn't constitute a homicide, I don't know what does. Thank you.
Anthony Larvina, 1050 George Street. Just to change the topic a little bit. Can you tell me, Council President, what the city is doing to provide alternate transportation in New Brunswick?
Alternate transportation?
Transportation that does not involve driving on the road or riding in a bus that also uses the road network.
Bicycles, anything else? Mr. Patterson?
We've instituted bicycle lanes in the city. We've done a lot of sharrows up in the 5th, 6th Ward area. There is a dedicated bike lane on Remsen Avenue. The city engineer has plans for an additional dedicated bike lane on Sedan Street that would go in the spring when the weather turns. We're also trying to make the city more pedestrian friendly. We have installed a number of generally called flashing crosswalks in the neighborhoods on Joyce Kilmer, Commercial Avenue, Van Dyke Avenue to assist pedestrians crossing the roads. There's also a couple downtown on George Street and Johnson Drive to assist the pedestrians in doing that. In fact, the city gets a very high walk score, which is a system for rating the walkability of towns. New Brunswick rates at 70, which is considered very walkable, and the areas in the downtown area rating 95, which they call a walker's paradise. It's something that we prioritize very highly to try to make the city more pedestrian friendly, so that you don't have to rely on your car. Your car can be an option, but you try to make other options so that you don't have to rely on them. And with not relying on the road system, We also have the Northeast Corridor system that goes through town, so you have a train that goes through town also.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I wasn't looking for bicycle alternatives. I'm fully aware about the showers, and I really do appreciate that the city put those in because I ride my bike predominantly to and from work here in the city. But I noticed that there's an extreme amount of traffic in New Brunswick, and from driving around here and from various places I've worked around town talking to people, some commuters, it takes them an hour to get into East Brunswick, which is like astonishing. It's only 2 miles, 3 miles down the road, and it takes them an hour to get into East Brunswick. What I'd like to bring attention to is a 2001 light rail feasibility study conducted by Tran and the Blaustein School of Rutgers University. The study sought to find out if a light rail system from Piscataway through New Brunswick and ending in East Brunswick would have been feasible. And the study consulted, and this is ridiculous, but it consulted Milltown, New Brunswick, East Brunswick, North Brunswick, Piscataway, New Jersey Transit, Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, J&J, St. Peter's, the Middlesex Chamber of Commerce, Middlesex County, and the North Jersey Transit Planning Authority. And that's just part of the list of stakeholders and groups that this study contacted. And even more amazingly, all of these parties agreed that a light rail system in New Brunswick would be a good idea. So, and I'll give you some highlights from the study. The light rail system is physically feasible here in the greater Brunswick area. That means that there is no physical barrier that makes it impossible to build, or no engineering feat too great that the system couldn't be built. Also, in 2001, the projected ridership was going to be 55,000 people a day, and that's in 2001. So now we're probably talking in the numbers around like 80,000 daily riders of this system. It had a minimal need for shared roadways, and removal of on-street parking was minimal. Significant travel time savings from the comparable hour to get into East Brunswick, or 45 minutes, or whatever crazy amount of time it takes people to go a couple miles to the next town over. All areas on the system would benefit from the system, and I'm not sure in 2001 if the Transit Village tax credits existed, but this should count as a piece of transit infrastructure. I don't know if you know the Transit Village tax credits only extend to about Moore Street along George, and you can notice the difference when you're walking down George Street that downtown's nice and has nice buildings, and then you cross Moore Street and you're like, oh wow, where did all the development go? Well, that's because there's no tax credits to build there. So if this transit system existed, these tax credits could extend into parts of New Brunswick that definitely need development, and maybe we might be able to get the Remsen Avenue redesigned streetscape that the mayor talked about, I think, like 8 years ago or something like that, and it's still not around. And most importantly, the study recommended that the light rail system take the next step in 2001. And the next step was supposed to be a more in-depth study to find out costs and the engineering that would have to go into making a new bridge across the river and things like that. The step never got taken. And I wish Mr. Laughlin was here. He was actually part of this whole study. He was mentioned in it, and I thought he might be able to have some comments. But
Sure. There was a study done. It's not a New Brunswick study. It was funded by the county with some DOT funds. Contrary to what I said, there were actually physical impediments to doing it, which they looked at in the next steps. One of the real issues that they have is the Northeast Corridor itself, is getting a system that would run from Piscataway through the city down to Milltown through the physical Northeast Corridor because of the train bridge there. So that might be surmountable. That was an issue there. There are also no funds there. The state's Transportation Trust Fund is depleted. This governor and the previous governor have declined to raise the gas tax to fund that. New Jersey has one of the lowest gas taxes in the country, so they have a depleted transportation trust fund. The tax credits that he referred to, there's no such thing as a transit village tax credit. It's called the Urban Transit Hub tax credit, and it's related to train stations. It's only been in existence for a few years, and it's only was intended to be in existence for a few years. We've used that for a number of developments downtown to make New Brunswick a more walkable place. We asked for development that is not relying on the road system. That's exactly what we've been doing here to make New Brunswick a place where you can live downtown, walk, bike to a job, take mass transit to a job. We've developed a supermarket, a health club downtown, so you can live downtown and not have to rely on your car. Also saying that once you go past Morris Street, the development stops. That's I would take issue with that because we've made a lot of changes to that George Street corridor compared to what it looked like 15 or 20 years ago. Built a new elementary school on George Street. There's a new Rutgers public safety building in that area. We've developed affordable housing along that corridor in the Remsen Avenue area. Developed Rockwell Hall and the George down in there. So there's been a lot of development down there and in other locations downtown. Outside of downtown also. So not to criticize what he's saying, but we've been taking a lot of efforts. This has been a priority for the administration to try to make New Brunswick a city that is more walkable, a place where you can live and not be reliant on a car and have a very good lifestyle living down here. So the points that he's making are trying to make the city more accessible and not have to rely on a car. We fully support it, but there are some reasons out there that you can't go and just build the BRT system. One, it's a lot of money. There are some physical impediments. There isn't a lot of money out there to go get it. When you brought up that I think it was 60,000 or 55,000 is the project.
Yes, in 2000.
Part of what the study said, that was to replace the Rutgers bus system. So most of that ridership population would be coming off of the Rutgers bus system. The additional ridership, frankly, wasn't all that much because it was going out to locations like Centennial Avenue in Piscataway, which doing non-rush hour type periods, you weren't going to get much ridership from, and most of that ridership was going to be from taking from the Rutgers bus system, which already exists.
I'd just like to make a few more comments. The mass transit that we currently have, to include New Jersey Transit, the Rutgers buses, the MCAT, and all commuter cars, all rely on the same road network to get in and out of the city. And I understand that a majority of Rutgers students would be on this light rail system, and that actually makes it more feasible, not less, because Rutgers spends like $4 million a year on their buses. So we could get a cut of that, or the light rail system can take a cut of that. The transit infrastructure, as it is right now, is an extreme impediment to business, and it's hampering development in New Brunswick. And I understand that we've done, or that the city has done a lot of great things here over the past 20 years, but I think it can be improved. I would like the city to petition whoever they have to petition to see if we can get this studied again.
The city has some many initiatives also with the thousands of the line brokers, so they have worked very closely. Some of the initiatives have been involved with the city, very helpful. So I'm pretty sure that if it's something that, the study was done, it was in 2001, right? So it's and there were some things that were, as you mentioned, I haven't seen the study, that there were some identified needs, plus there were some identified challenges to the project of that kind. Money being one of, the big ones, which is a major one.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your comments, and like I said, that if it's something that I know Mr. Patterson is, that he likes this walkable, he's very proud of making all this, the city walkable and accessible for everybody. He's one of the experts in that, and I know that he really works hard on that. So we will continue, but thank you for your comment. Thank you. This time I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson,
I'm I'm sorry, I thought there
We
were
just-
people who
we
wanted
just-
to talk. I had more stuff to bring
Oh,
up.
well, we don't, we just say we're going to the
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming,
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti,
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes.